It's another beautiful day here in Central Florida. We're at Osceola County Stadium in Kissimmee, where the Houston Astros continue their spring by hosting the Pittsburgh Pirates here this afternoon. And a glorious day it is. Alan Ashby with you, along with Steve Sparks. Bill Brown is doing a little radio detail today, and Julia Morales is finding out everything interesting going on with the ball club throughout the day. Sparky, it's been a good spring, and now today Roberto Hernandez gets his shot to show why he maybe should be the guy for the fifth spot in the rotation.
Well, you think back to this time last year, Ash. The Astros were in a similar situation. Dallas Keuchel didn't know he was going to make the team, and all he did was make the team as the fifth starter. Came out of nowhere to become the Astros pitcher of the year. Roberto Hernandez gets the ball today. Great sinker ball. He's got a good two-seam fastball that bores in on the righties, tails away from the left-handed hitters. A good slider, good changeup mix. Last year, in fact, improved on what he had done the last 3 years. 20 starts for the Philadelphia Phillies, a 3.87 ERA.
So we'll see Hernandez on the day. We'll also see Dan Straily and others. That battle continues. There are others on the ball club we'll talk about throughout the day. Coming up, roster battles continue. The battle for the last roster spots are being hotly contested. Who has the edge as the season draws closer? Julia Morales talks about it when we return.
Hosting the Pirates on this very sunny afternoon here today. George Springer is going to get us started with a sunflower seed. We're just going to get this out of the way right now. Thank you very much, George. As far as the lineup changes, all right. Here we go. Okay. AJ Hinch giving out the lineup. I think we're done now, so we can actually talk some baseball. Hinch handing over the lineup right now, and it's been different. It's still not set in stone, but one thing we can say, Jose Altuve will start at second base on opening day. But as far as other positions goes, a lot of competition in some starting jobs. But one that will be very interesting to watch are some of those bench roles so far. AJ Hinch saying just recently, a couple days ago, that there are 4 guys that are competing for just one spot on the roster, and some of these guys have a lot of big league time. It's guys like Jonathan Villar, John Singleton, Matt Dominguez, and Alex Presley. Like I said, some big league time within those 4 guys. Some tough decisions to be made, but the Astros are going to have to decide how they construct their bench, and they're going to need some of these guys to back up first base, third base. You're going to see AJ doing some different things, like Matt Dominguez backing up first coming up here in the next couple of days. Also, we've seen Jonathan Villar out in center field. Guys, some really, really seriously tough decisions for AJ Hinch and company coming up.
No doubt about it, Julia, and thanks a lot. Sparky, we've talked about it, and you've had a chance throughout the spring working on the radio side to see what's going on. It's always intriguing to see, even if it's just one spot to be filled by a ball club, how it plays out. But the Astros do have a few, and I think it's become more and more intriguing with Jonathan Villar grabbing glove, playing in center field, with some of the guys moving around from first and the DH and all that that goes on, as we'll get a chance to talk about Roberto Hernandez in a moment. But Alex Presley, a guy that maybe at the moment is not assured of a job.
Well, I think it's because Robbie Grossman has had such a good spring, and they're similar players, and Grossman can switch hit. So I don't know where that's going to put Presley. You're going to have a lot of versatility. Presley can play all three outfield positions, so that's a plus. He can run a little bit and hit for a little bit of power. But when you look on the infield, you have a guy like Marwin Gonzalez being able to play 4 infield positions, and he's even played first base this spring, and also play a couple of the outfield positions if need be for an inning or two. That makes him very valuable. Now to come to that last spot, what do you need? You need a guy with a little bit of speed to pinch run late, or that's what the staff, A.J. Hinch and all those guys are going to have to come up with. And keep in mind, it's only the beginning of the season. Things can change a lot within a month or two.
So these guys continue the battle. It's just a spring training game, but it's tough for a lot of the guys on these rosters. And now for the Pittsburgh Pirates, as they visit this afternoon, their lineup will have Josh Harrison in the top spot. Had a great year last year, followed by the shortstop Jody Mercer. Gregory Polanco will play in right field. Doing the catching and batting fourth, Tony Sanchez. Pedro Alvarez, former third baseman, now at first for the Buccos. Jeff Decker, followed by Steve Lombardozzi, Pedro Florimon, and the pitcher Charlie Morton here this afternoon.
For the Astros starting today, it's going to be big right-hander Roberto Hernandez, 34 years old now. Pitched last year with the Philadelphia Phillies, 20 starts over there with them, and had a 3.87 ERA. This spring has been up and down for Roberto, who got here late because of visa problems. But good two-seam fastball, slider, and a changeup mix.
And the first pitch of the afternoon, in for a strike, calling balls and strikes this afternoon. The veteran Lance Barksdale around the bases, and they'll shift around Jeff Nelson, Laz Diaz, and Jeff Gosney. Roberto Hernandez is a guy, as he has this high fastball lined into right center field for a base hit. So there's the leadoff knock of the afternoon. But Hernandez, through his career, has had issues with command.
He has, and elevating fastballs makes his fastball seem to tail and stay on the same plane with the barrel, and that's what we saw just there from Josh Harrison.
You feel that noose tighten up sometimes when you're battling for a spot, as Hernandez is right now, and the first hitter steps up and lines one to center field?
You can't help it. Even when you're a veteran guy like Roberto Hernandez trying to hang on and keep something going in your career, sometimes I think those guys put more pressure on themselves.
Hernandez throwing strikes early, finds the strike zone.
But there's nothing fun about spring training that last week and a half when you're fighting for a spot.
You know, it's an intriguing time of the year for ball players, because if you're one of the guys that has a spot locked up, you're basically just trying to get hot at the end of the spring, take it toward opening day, move along, be healthy. If you're one of the guys vying for a chance to be on a big league ball club rather than get sent to the minor leagues, or for some of the guys to get released, very different. And it's life and death sometimes, it feels like anyway, when you come to the ballpark each day.
Keep in mind those guys on the bubble too, Ash, don't ever have a chance to work on anything if they want to go out there and work on their changeup on a specific day.
Ground ball to third on a big hop handled by VR. He'll start the 5-4-3 double play. The Astros had a pair of those turned yesterday in a loss against the Yankees, as the Yanks came back in the ninth inning with 3 runs and beat Houston 3-2. But Jonathan VR getting a chance to do something different.
Here's how the Astros are going to line up on defense. Colby Rasmus in left field. Presley gets the start in center. Springer in right field. Left side of the infield, VR and Jed Lowry. Altuve Carter right side, and former Angel Hank Conger doing the job behind the plate.
And we'll take a look at that double play. Started beautifully.
Good start by VR, playing a new position at third base. Good transfer, as you would imagine.
You can see Altuve backing away from the bag as he was able to turn the double play. Again, close but not getting a call, Hernandez. It's critical as a second baseman that you have multiple moves at the bag. Otherwise, the runners will bear down on you and give you fits over the course of the year. Looked like the changeup for a strike.
First look we've seen of that changeup. Good fading action on that pitch, working away from Polanco. Long arms from the left side. Tremendous power.
Polanco playing in right field for the Pirates. And now a 1-2 count. So the one thing you can spot here in the first inning for Hernandez is he's throwing strikes. He's picked up a ground ball that's created the double play. And that's basically what he wants to do.
We didn't see a lot of ground balls in his last outing, so that's a good sign.
And that last outing came against these Pirates in Bradenton. The wind was blowing out to right field. A number of hitters took advantage of that wind. And it was, quite frankly, a tough day on which to pitch. A.J. Hinch has had his hands full this spring. He's been very busy with the media, but his main focus with the ball club, and there are some spots that require a lot of attention. Pitch was left up and hit in the air deep to right center field. Presley on the move, and he'll make the nice running grab at the warning track. And so a base hit, a ground ball for a double play, and a long fly ball. And just like that, just 3 hitters faced in the first for Roberto Hernandez. The Astros coming up. Jack in the Box presents our Astros starting lineup, and that lineup for the Astros here this afternoon. And it's been gorgeous one day after another here from Kissimmee and throughout Central Florida. Jose Altuve in the top spot. He's had a good spring. George Springer also has been swinging it well. And a guy that's impressed a lot, Luis Valbuena. He's the third baseman generally right now. He's the DH today. Chris Carter follows, hit his first home run yesterday. Jed Lowry steady at shortstop. Colby Rasmus yet to get the bat going. He's in left field, followed by Jonathan Villar. He's been all over the place on the spring. Started the double play. Hank Conger praised for his defensive abilities. He does the catching, and in center field, Alex Presley.
It's going to be big right-hander Charlie Morton for the Pirates today. Slated to be the fourth starter for Clint Hurdle's team. 6'4", about 200 pounds. Tremendous sinking fastball. He has a lot of pitches. A curveball, a changeup, a cutter, a split-fingered fastball. May get him in trouble trying to throw too many pitches from time to time, but finally got healthy last year. 3.72 ERA in 26 starts.
So it's Jose Altuve, 225 hits last year. What an amazing season he strung together. Won the batting title, of course, at 341. Led the American League title for stolen bases. He was just phenomenal, and he's picked it up right where he left off last year. You may recall that final day of the season, what an intriguing day it was. Is he in the lineup? Is he not? Eventually he's in there. He gets a couple of hits and wins that batting title. It was starting to get close.
Love to see him take the reins on that last day. He had the option to sit out the game, and he decided he wanted to win it on his own, and he certainly did it.
It's a high chopper to third. That'll be handled on the hop. And making the play from third is Harrison. And that's one of the great stories for the Pirates we'll get into.
Here's the defense for the Pirates in the outfield. Steve Lombardozzi gets action in left field. Jeff Decker, he's in center. Gregory Polanco in right. Josh Harrison, third base. Jordy Mercer at short. Right side, Pedro Florimon. Pedro Alvarez. And doing the catching is Tony Sanchez.
Brings George Springer to the plate. And Springer is showing signs of maybe cutting down on the swing a little bit, and in the process on the strikeouts. Hits one to the shortstop Mercer's right side on the backhand side. He makes the nice play and throws out Springer. He hasn't been running full force down the line at times this spring, and that may be by design, trying to stay away from any injuries on those legs.
You know, you and I spoke about that in yesterday's game in Tampa when the Astros were playing the Yankees, and I agree with you. It looks like he's coasting a little bit, making sure he doesn't tweak anything. He had that issue with his quad last year, and I think it's a good idea. Make sure you get out of spring training healthy.
Yeah, you hate to ever look like you're not putting out, but I think if you're the manager, you say, look, George, all we want from you is a healthy 162 on the year.
Take a look at the swing right here by George Springer. Aggressive on that first pitch, and got a fastball. That's exactly what he wanted, but good action from Charlie Morton, just getting inside a bit.
Fastball finds the strike zone. Ball and a strike on Valbuena. one of the terrific stories now. Yes, the Astros went out and traded for Valbuena. He comes over from the Cubs. But he has, along with maybe being told you're likely the third baseman at the start of the year, he's lived up to it here on the spring. He's played very well.
He's been a monster at the plate, not afraid to hit with 2 strikes. That's what you love to see. Very balanced with that deep crouch.
Pops one up, shallow into center field. Coming on is Decker. He'll call off the shortstop Mercer to make the play. And a 1-2-3 bottom of the first inning. So the Pirates come to the plate in a tie ball game. Astros fans and Pirates fans getting along together here in the sun in Kissimmee, Florida. It's been quite a spring. I know you've had a lot of rain back in Houston, but we have not been getting any remnants of that here in Florida. Been terrific for the players. Roberto Hernandez vying for that 5 spot in the rotation. He gets through the first inning allowing a hit, but gets a double play, so faces just 3. He'll face the 4, 5, 6 hitters Tony Sanchez, Pedro Alvarez, and Jeff Decker here in the second.
You know, Ash, it was raining quite a bit before the game started here in Kissimmee, but like you said, it's just been picture perfect for baseball.
Yeah, I assume you mean in Houston the rain was coming.
No, here in Florida.
Oh, yeah, well, that tarp is amazing the way it can handle things.
At your house, in your backyard?
You know, I managed here one summer, way back, I think it was 96, the A-ball team.
That had to be refreshing.
Oh, my goodness. And they had just a ton of rain, as this area can get. And pulling the tarp and squeegeeing the field, that was all part of what being a manager meant in those days.
Did they have a mosquito mister back then?
We just called some of the mosquitoes Mister because they were so big. Ground ball to third. VR with the play and out number 1. So VR has had a couple of opportunities, and they have produced 3 outs, as it turns out, with a double play in the first inning. There's Dallas Keuchel, and a part of a rotation last year. The top 3 men, Keuchel, McHugh, and Feldman, were really good. The others had their struggles.
Well, they did, and you look at the walks to strikeouts, and that's what usually separates a lot of guys. You keep the traffic out of there. Keuchel gets a lot of ground balls, so that keeps it efficient, 5 complete games. But look at those 2 guys, and you look at McHugh and Keuchel. And 2 of those guys weren't prominent in spring training last year. Keuchel barely made the team as a 5th starter. McHugh sent down. He was already in minor league camp this time last year and didn't come on until the 3rd week of the season, so it goes to show you this doesn't really mean a whole lot.
One thing we've seen this spring from A.J. Hinch is he is willing to use the shift. 3 infielders on the right side with the left-hand hitter. Very cerebral guy, and yet a guy that is great with the media.
Very open and transparent, which we love, right?
Absolutely. We've seen at times 4 infielders on the right side. I don't know how much he'll feature that during the regular season. Any insights on your part?
Well, there's going to be an adjustment. That's the one thing I know. Buck Showalter had a great quote in the paper not too long ago, and people talked about, do you think the shift is going to last? And he said, well, I don't see a whole lot of teams running the wishbone in college football anymore. And at some point, you know, there's going to be power hitters bunting the ball down the third baseline and making sure you keep that third baseman at home at the very least.
Well, I'm surprised we haven't seen more of the bunt. I'm not sure if, as the fastball's right at the knees, painted for a strike, caught looking Alvarez. First strikeout on the afternoon for Hernandez. And 2 outs here in the second inning.
Well, we'll take a look at Dallas Keuchel last year, where he really came into his own, and good darting action on the fastball. That slider he was able to incorporate, and a total overhaul for Colin McHugh last year. He went to more of a four-seam fastball curveball after being a sinker slider guy. And Feldman, along with Brent Strom, making adjustments throughout the year, changing speeds, keeping the ball low, and using that leverage with that tall frame.
Bunt on the right side, so there's a bunt. This one without a shift, and a shift was not needed. A perfect bunt laid down by Jeff Decker. A 2-out single. Second hit for the Pirates.
Well, I raised my eyebrows when I saw Jeff Decker in center field today because of the body frame, and it looks like Matt Stairs almost at home plate, but apparently runs pretty well, and just a beautiful bunt. You don't see a lot of guys pull that down the first base line with them anymore, but it's a great weapon.
And with 2 outs, he starts a rally, potentially. And I was talking about with shifts on why guys don't bunt to the open side. It seems like it's become less than the manly thing to do. I don't know.
I think it is, and I think a lot of guys are just stubborn. You know, they don't want to take the bat out of their hands. But I know just being around the batting cages, Ash, and you hear other players, they just get worn out by how many base hits have been taken away from them in the last few years. And I think mentally it's really taken a toll on a lot of pull power guys throughout the league.
Pitch in the dirt. Decker playing in center field this afternoon. Or make that Steve Lombardozzi, excuse me, he's the left fielder, as Decker leads from first base.
So look at this last year, 31-30 with a 3.15 ERA. Not a great record despite the fantastic ERA by those guys. But what did the Astros do? They fixed the back end of the bullpen, and I think those guys will see their win-loss totals greatly increase because of what the bullpen's going to be able to do.
Pirates hitters at times patient here in the early goings. Good shot of Steve Lombardozzi, hitting .333 on his spring, 27 at-bats. So he's getting it done.
By the way, not a big fan of that 2-out bunt by Decker.
Little tapper is foul. 2-2 as the count evens.
You have a guy hitting behind you in Steve Lombardozzi who doesn't have a lot of power. Unless Decker's going to run real early in this count, I don't see a reason to try to hit a bunt. For typically 2 outs, nobody on, you want a guy to go out there and hit a double and get in scoring position, especially for a light hitter behind him.
Here's a thought, and of course I don't know if this could be the case, but sometimes a manager or a coach will say, hey, we've been working on that bunt. Not a bad time. Just go ahead and lay one down. See if you can get yourself an infield hit right here to get something started.
That's right.
A lot of things go on in the spring. I know as pitchers you might be told in a particular outing, hey, I want to see this particular pitch.
Especially in the last inning of a guy's outing. You can tell when they've been told something in the dugout like, hey, I haven't seen any changeups.
Runner goes from first, a swing and a miss. So a second strikeout picked up by Hernandez. He strands a runner. We've played 1.5 and we're scoreless from Kissimmee. Try the new legendary Buttery Jack at Jack in the Box. Do it today. Steve Sparks loves the Buttery Jack.
Love anything with butter.
Look at this. Some clouds in the sky. We've seen a bit of that here on the spring, but generally speaking, mid-80s temperatures, ideal to get your work in. Maybe for some of us, a little too much on the warm side.
Get a little bit. I start feeling like Buttery Jack sometimes when I'm out in the sun too much here.
Yeah, and in your case, that really is not a good thing.
Because I was trying to stay neutral there, Ash.
See, I think the Buttery Jack was supposed to sound luscious, but in this case, I don't know that it works for me. So we go to the bottom of the second inning. Chris Carter, the first baseman, stands in. Carter, we mentioned, hit his first home run on the spring yesterday. It was a dead center shot at George Steinbrenner Field in Tampa. Gave the Astros a first inning 2-0 lead that held up until the bottom of the ninth inning when they allowed 3 runs and the Yankees came back to win it. Carter does have 8 RBIs on the spring while hitting just .227, so I don't know, are we looking at, with that set of numbers, figures that could be pretty close to the regular year? Who knows, but here's a line shot into left.
He's taken a lot better swings, more aggressive here just in the last few days, and obviously a great hit to left field on that fastball count. He was real passive early on in spring training. I think he was just trying to track the ball into the catcher's glove, just see it a little bit longer.
So Carter, no speed at first base as Jed Lowry stands in. Lowry's going to be an intriguing guy in this batting order. Switch hitter. He'll get the bat on the ball. But it's an order that, as much as possible, tries to spread the right and left-handed bats. And it does look like Altuve and Springer will be in the top 2 spots, followed by the left-handed bat of Valbuena. Then Carter is the cleanup man, possibly. Lowry, the way I understand it, figures to bat 6th in the order. But I think that's A.J. Hinch's notion, is that he'd like to have those left and right-handed bats back and forth as much as possible throughout the order.
And the reason being, late in the game, you have 3 righties or 3 lefties stacked up. It's easy to match up with a specialty reliever. That makes a lot of sense. I think Lowry, being a switch hitter, is really good and right behind the meat of the order. It's pretty dangerous up there. He's a gap guy. He tries to hit line drives.
Inside as they try to hit that inside corner against Lowry.
When you have guys like Altuve, Springer, Carter, guys that are real aggressive, don't see a lot of pitches, it's nice to have players like Valbuena and Lowry to work the pitcher a little bit, make them think as they go out there.
Swing and a miss, good sinking action.
Hides the ball well. You look at Charlie Morton, stays closed for a real long time and just whips around at the last second. I think it's tough to pick up for a hitter.
As a pitcher, your thoughts on what a Jed Lowry can bring to the middle of the defense playing at shortstop every day?
Well, very sure-handed. I think he's very underrated as far as arm strength, and I saw it in the last year in Oakland last season. And I even talked to Bob Melvin, their manager, about it. They say he worked real hard on those deep throws in the hole. We saw it a couple of games ago here where he made a tremendous play deep in the hole in the outfield grass and made a perfect strike to get this man. But I think sure-handedness, I think it's a real plus that he's worked with Altuve before.
Little looping liner going to drop in right field. Back-to-back hits Carter and Lowry. Stopping at second is Carter, so the Astros have something going. Nobody out, a couple of runners aboard for Colby Rasmus playing in left field. And Colby has had a tough spring, hitting 133.
We certainly know what Colby Rasmus can bring to the table. Here's what Jed Lowry can bring. There's a fastball, middle in, elevated about belt high, and Lowry knows what to do with that one. Just short stroke.
So a pair of line drives off of Astros bats. The Astros are 7-7, 3 ties along the way. The Pirates 9-7, also with 3 ties. Colby Rasmus, tall, lean, lots of power. He'll surprise you at times, but he'll also strike out a bunch. And of course, that's a part of the offense for the Astros that is already there more prominently than you would like. Infield shallows up a bit for the double play.
As a pitcher, when you get in a situation where it really matters, you'd rather see a guy like this come up to the plate where there are some holes. Now, obviously, he is dangerous. That's why those little spray hitters can be so annoying as a pitcher, especially in situations like this.
Colby Rasmus with one long ball on his spring. Just stings one into the seats down the right side. And let's keep our fingers crossed that the fans were able to avoid this line shot.
But I think being able to make adjustments this season, when you're talking about some of the strikeout guys on this roster, runner on second base, no outs, you're going to have to cut out the strikeouts.
Rasmus swings through it. It's 2-2. If you tried to sum up Rasmus's career to this point, it probably would start with very good defense. He's primarily a center fielder. He'll be asked to play in center and likely some left field this year. But he also has that great power.
Certainly dangerous. You make a mistake, he'll make you pay for it.
Hits one sharply to first, but it's handled. They'll get an out at second base. The throw back to first, not in time. So they get just the out on the force play. 3-6, retiring Lowry. Into third base is Carter.
Pretty slick play by the shortstop Mercer, handling that throw from Alvarez. Sharply hit by Rasmus. Hustling down the line to beat out the double play. But that's not an easy play. Mercer, the shortstop, a rangy guy, 6'4" over there playing shortstop. Able to come off that bag and still spin and make a good throw to first.
So the base runners now for the Astros. Carter at third. At first it's Rasmus. So some speed at first base. Rasmus will steal an occasional bag. Jonathan Villar gets the start at third base. And the switch hitter bats left-handed.
So if you're Villar, you're probably surveying the field a little bit. You see Josh Harrison, the third baseman, even with the bag creeping in. Villar good at going the other way when he lets the ball travel. He gets in trouble when he jumps toward the pitcher.
Huh?
We know Villar is a shortstop primarily, but right now he's turning into that guy that they're looking to see if he can fill the utility role. Playing at third base today, he has played some second base. We've even seen him in center field. His value becomes much greater when you look at him as a utility guy that can play both the infield and the outfield. He drills one to the gap in right center field, and this is going to scoot and go to the wall. Carter will score. Rasmus comes from first all the way to the plate. It'll be 2-0 Houston, as standing into third base is Jonathan Villar, and that stock rises.
There's plenty of value in triples in the gap. A lot of speed by Villar. When he stays short to the baseball, we see him try to get too big at times. He's lethal. He has plenty of power when he stays within himself. And as a bench guy, I typically like guys that are a little bit more mature off the bench, that are able to keep their emotions under control. But what you see in Villar really excites you in a tools compartment.
Yeah, I think we talked a lot about that a couple of years ago when he came up with the Astros. The tools were very evident. I'm not sure he's quite as fast right now as he was then, as Hank Conger, another switch hitter, fouls the first pitch.
Well, pitchers certainly notice when a shortstop has way above average range, like a Jonathan Villar. A ball zipped by and you think that's a base hit, and he's able to swoop across and get it. That's very helpful for a pitcher, physically and mentally.
Hank Conger, 26 years of age, takes the curveball. The count at 0-2.
So the infield's in here. Conger will try to look for a pitch a little up in the zone. Now 2 strikes, just protecting.
This is the 8th spot in the Astros order. From the stretch, Morton brings the 0-2. For Hank Conger, has not been a big spring, to say the least, with the bat. He's hitting .095. His 2 hits have both been singles, and those coming in 21 official at bats, so he's drawn just 1 walk along the way. And you know, deep down inside, he would love to get the offensive side going. Taps the curveball foul.
Yeah, he's gotten a lot of extra looks because he's always been that guy to go back to the backfields and catch a pitcher in some B games that need some work, and he gets a lot of at-bats in those games. Usually bat second every inning and get about 5 at-bats, so I would imagine he's feeling pretty close to where he wants to be timing-wise.
Part of spring training truth for catchers is you say that Well, I'm all about the defensive side of the game. I want to learn the pitchers, work with them, and make sure everything is strong there. And though there's a great deal of truth there, deep inside, like any other position player, he wants to swing the bat well.
You want to feel like you can contribute.
Pitch is lined to left field toward the gap and in a bit to make the play is Lombardozzi tagging from third. VR comes in to score, so it's a sac fly. And here in the second inning, the Astros now hold a 3-0 lead.
It just doesn't get much better than that. Hank Conger with 2 strikes protecting. Recognizing that off-speed pitch and keeping that barrel way behind his hand so he could get plenty on it. They get it deep enough so Lombardozzi could not throw out VR. So good piece of hitting with 1 out.
That's a classic inning the Astros are putting together here. You get that leadoff single by Carter. Not generally what you look for with him as your lead runner, but Lowry then singles, runners at first and second. Rasmus hits into the fielder's choice, and then it comes together as VR triples to the gap in right center field, and the sac fly by Conger. So it's that triple, or as the Astros did a lot last year, the home run that really sets up the big innings for the club.
They've done it this inning by remaining patient off Morton, taking some tough pitches, even though they were strikes, and waiting for a bad one.
Alex Presley, we've talked about it, battling for a job. Hammers one to right field, going back, and not able to make the play is Polanco. Presley will chug into second. He's not stopping there. The Astros have 2 triples on the inning. VR and now Presley, and with 2 outs, a man at third for Jose Altuve.
Every once in a while, you see Alex Presley get a hold of a ball, and not a very big guy, about 5'10", 170 pounds, but the ball really jumps off his bat. Take a look at this, hitting off that front leg, puts it on the barrel, and that even had a little top spin on it. Going out to right field, it still travels about 375 feet.
Chris Everett would be very proud of that top spin.
That's right. Ray Searage will come out to the mound now and have a word with Charlie Morton, who's left 4 or 5 pitches up this inning, and he's paid for every single one of them.
The Astros have sent 9 to the plate. They have 4 hits now after a 1-2-3 first inning. Jose Altuve will try to add to this 3-0 lead here in the second inning.
Mentioned in the pregame that Charlie Morton penciled in as the 4th starter for the Pirates, who at the top have Liriano, Garrett Cole, and A.J. Burnett.
From the stretch, pitch is fouled back. Altuve not going to get cheated.
I think the big issue, Ash, for these Pittsburgh Pirates is how this pitching staff is going to perform without Russell Martin, who signed with the Blue Jays.
Yeah, I think that's going to be a huge topic of conversation as a little jam shot on a hop goes to short. Bobbled momentarily. Mercer still makes the play to get Altuve. Not sure they get him during the regular season there. The Astros put 3 runs on the board. This was the big swing. Jonathan VR. Three on the board. They all come in the second inning as the bats came alive. A couple of triples in that frame. And the Astros 3-0 on top of the Pirates here. We go to the third inning and a chance to check in with Julia.
Hey there, I have Mark Appel with me, who's coming off a very solid outing yesterday, 3 innings, scoreless innings in relief against the Yankees. Was it kind of exciting for you to pitch against the Yankees?
It was, yeah. You know, it's the New York Yankees. So it was a lot of fun. We had a really good time.
Never got to worrying you about this part of standing down here.
You know, I'm pretty used to it. You know, I know these guys have a lot of fun, so we're just having a good time.
Well, tell me about how you're feeling. We just talked about some forearm tightness that was really precautionary early in spring training, but how are you feeling right now?
I feel good. I feel really good. Yeah, we had, you know, that little precautionary, not even a setback really, but it was one of those things that as, you know, it's the second outing of spring training, you know, a little bit of tightness. I wanted to get stretched. They wanted to just be really precautionary about it. And so they, you know, shut me down. And so I had, you know, I feel healthy. I feel healthy right now.
This is just torture for you, isn't it?
No, it's all right. It's all right.
That hit me straight in the head. So, as far as what you're working on, Mark, if you can just block these guys out and tell me what you and Strami have been working on, some of the things you're focused on this spring training.
Yeah, that one got me right in the cheek. Yeah, we've just been focusing on kind of the quickness to the plate for me. Both in the windup and the stretch. You know, I find that when I'm a little bit quicker, you know, my stuff is a lot better. And so, you know, just overall crispness of the stuff. Yesterday I felt really good, especially got settled in the second and third innings that I was in. So I had a good time.
A lot of people may not remember your spring training last year. It was just an unfortunate situation, missing a lot of time there. So how excited were you just to get here and be able to show the team what you could do?
I mean, it's great. You know, I'm obviously grateful to the Astros for the opportunity to be in spring training. Grateful to, you know, God for the talents to be able to be here. And so, you know, putting those two things together, I just feel like I'm in a really good spot. I'm healthy. I feel like I have an opportunity to go out and have some fun. Really enjoy myself this spring, learn a lot from the big league guys, and just and hopefully have a good spring, it's been a lot of fun so far.
Mark, this is all part of training you for the big leagues. I just wanted you to know, all part of it.
Oh yeah. Actually, in the fall league, you know, they were throwing towels and sunflower seeds on me, so I had a little bit of practice, but I don't think it was anything this bad. So.
I know, you should talk about Keuchel's beard too. He's the one been throwing towels and stuff at you, but what about him?
Yeah, I mean, he's
him under the bus.
Well, I mean, he's gone with he calls it the beard pony, little ponytail in his beard, and today he whipped out the beard pigtails, and I don't know if you'll be able to see it, but he's got two little like rubber bands in his beard. Just I don't know. I mean, I guess he kind of pulls it off, but yeah, we have a fun time in the locker room and in the dugout, and obviously we work hard on the field. So I
was really hoping you'd bring up the beard pigtails because they're just that great. Thank you so much for enduring all of that, and good luck the rest of the spring.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Guys, back up to you. Poor Mark.
Thank you, Julia. Yeah, I'm not so sure that the reaction time was real good for Mark Appel, but everything else seems to be good at this point. Pirates get a leadoff walk for Florimon. He's bunted up by the pitcher Charlie Morton, so one out, a man at second base. Josh Harrison, the leadoff man at the plate, with a 1-1 count. And as Mark was talking, he talked about quickness to the plates. Steve, I know you had a chance to watch what he did yesterday. It appeared, generally speaking, quite promising, and I know you have some thoughts.
Well, he didn't have a lot of base runners yesterday, but it's been a point of emphasis all spring long for A.J. Hinch and the staff to work on not only the major league pitchers, but the minor league side as well, as trying to shut down the running game by being a little bit quicker to the plate. And there's techniques that you can do, and as far as being quick with your feet toward home plate, you want to make sure your pitches don't suffer, but there's techniques.
Ground ball hit to the left side, but right there is the shortstop, Lowry. Throw a bit low, but handled easily by Carter. That's the second out with the runner holding. And let's take a look at a little bit of work from Appel and Correa.
Well, Appel was dazzling, as Julia had mentioned earlier yesterday. A power slider and a good fastball. And you'll see these two guys in spring training maybe a little bit longer, because I think knowing that these guys are going to be parts of the faces of the franchise for such a long time, obviously both guys being the #1 overall picks in successive years, it's good to be around the big league atmosphere. Obviously he's getting gum and water thrown at him during interviews, but that's just a small sample of what it's like to be in major league camp at such a young age.
It's what it's like to be here in the booth at times.
Well, I got an inkling to dazzle you with some water, the sun showers that Appel dealt with, but you're a little picky with your hair.
You know, pitch hit in the air, left center field. Presley has a beat on it as he heads back toward the warning track. He'll make the catch, and Hernandez gets out of the third inning unscathed. We've played 2.5 as Mark Appel works on some of his skills. 3-0 Houston. Top of the Pittsburgh Pirates. We go to the bottom of the third inning. The Astros having a nice second inning with the bats. George Springer a part of things.
There's some power that we saw last year with George Springer. This is what makes things so exciting, is to think that maybe able to get a chance to see what he can do full strength all season long, the power speed combination. Ash, we mentioned the 5 tools that Springer could throw out there, maybe 4.5 tools when you're talking about a guy that hasn't really hit for average yet at the major league level, but when he comes to the plate, this is must-see baseball. I get excited every single time.
Oh, I can't wait to see George Springer. He's one of those guys, I think, during the regular season when it's day to day and you're just trying to figure out what's going to happen today, you're still excited about what George Springer can be or bring to the game, and I think Carlos Correa can be that kind of player. I think Julia, once again, has something for us.
I think she's that type of player.
She is.
Well, guys, we've been talking about Springer looking a little bigger coming to camp, but it's all muscle. 12 pounds of muscle weight he put on this offseason. And he did something a little different this offseason. He did Jekyll Ball is what it's called, Jekyl, Jekyll Ball, and it's like a gymnastics style workout. Of course, he has a background in gymnastics. His mom has the background as being a gymnastics coach, but it's more of using your own body weight, pushing, pulling, things like that, and somehow put on 12 pounds. Of course, this guy eats very well, too, on top of that.
That must be what Ash did this offseason, too. You gained 13, right?
Yeah. And the thing is, it's the exact same way that those pounds were gained by George Springer. I think you'd have to agree.
You
right?
might have been on the Hyde program, not the Jekyll.
Hyde program, yeah.
The exact opposite.
Swinging a or rather a foul tip there by George. We're in the third inning. George Springer grounded out to shortstop back in the first inning. Well, he's just amazing, and I for the life of me, I cannot figure out why he puts the sleeves on to cover those guns. Chops one foul.
You'd show him off, wouldn't you?
Oh, in a heartbeat. I'd have Ted Kluszewski's old jersey top where you have nothing going down your arm. You're just seeing nothing but guns up there.
I just wear sleeves to hide the tats.
Well, for broadcasters, it's one thing. Springer waves through it on a pitch away. Down on strikes. And the first strikeout picked up by Morton on the afternoon. And Julia, once again, she's hustling today. What do you got now?
Well, while we're talking about Springer and the weight that he put on, I told you his diet had something to do with it. What's interesting about Springer, I don't know if everyone knows, is he's allergic to a lot of food. Can't eat seafood, can't eat shellfish, allergic to tree nuts. There's a lot of things he can't eat. So he basically eats pasta, chicken, steak, just very basic foods, and that's it. He likes to splurge a little bit with Mountain Dew and candy, but other than that, he's not going out to eat like I am.
So there are some things
like me.
Some things he just can't eat, but occasionally he'll slip in the candy bars and such, huh?
I knew he was hopped up on Mountain Dew. See him dancing in between innings.
Yeah. We haven't seen a lot of that this spring.
You know what? A.J. Hinch talks about how much infection he brings to the dugout and life. And Just you get some veterans in there and you have a guy full of life, and he's also a good player. I think it does nothing but help.
Oh, he's fabulous. Even when he was out a lot of last year, he had that infectious attitude, and he brings a lot. But bottom line is he's going to bring it on the field, and that's where it really pays off. 2 down as Valbuena grounds out. Chris Carter roped one into left field in the second inning to start a 3-run rally. The Astros with 4 hits on the afternoon, 2 for the Pirates. So Carter's starting to put it together. And again, I don't know what it matters in the spring. If Carter's not a good guy to talk about in this regard, but if Jose Altuve were to go 2 for 40 on the spring, would it worry everybody? My contention would be no. Although you'd probably be asking yourself, when is he going to find it again? But
did you see that guy out there? He fell on his face, embarrassed himself, still came up with the baseball, and acted like he'd done it before. That was a good move. Hopefully he has a little sunblock out there to go with it.
I don't know if you want to be a guy who falls on his face and then people say, well, obviously he's done it before. I don't know.
I know why he's standing in the shade. He's getting in the shade for a certain reason.
Yeah.
Looks like he's been in Florida for about a half a day at this point.
Here's a drive left field. Going back toward the track, Lombardozzi. He will not get there, and this one gets out of here. Right of the 390 marker, and just an easy little bit more than a half swing from Chris Carter. Back-to-back days with home runs, and now 2 on the spring, adding to the lead, 4-0 Houston.
If I'm not mistaken, Chris Carter yawned as this pitch was making its way to home plate, because this was just calm and short to the baseball. Look how compact this is as Carter unloads on this ball. Looks effortless as he gives high fives into the dugout. Look at that strength. His hips rotating and the bat lagging, and 400 feet later he's got a knock.
Here's the question I would ask of a lot of fans. What major league hitter had the second most home runs in the bigs last year? Chris Carter is the answer.
I think we're looking at him, aren't we?
Yeah. And I don't think a lot of people realize that. And what he did in the second half was what we just saw right there, cutting down on the swing. I heard some people complaining about that approach. What I saw was it just made him a much more viable hitter.
You know, he took a look at Mike Trout and Albert Pujols taking batting practice one day in Anaheim, and the light went off. He watched the way they went about their business.
You know, as the strikeout is recorded on Lowry, that'll do it for the Astros, so we'll have to pick it up next time we see Carter. But with that home run, the Astros add another to their 4-0 lead.
Pitcher Roberto Hernandez. He's got it all working. 3 shutout innings so far. He'll do it with a curveball. He'll get a double play on that one. Good sign of getting a ground ball. Little strikeout here. A freeze fastball inside corner against Pedro Alvarez. And how about a changeup? Swing and a miss right there against Steve Lombardozzi. So all 3 pitchers featured right there. Roberto Hernandez using them all, throwing them on any count, and that's what's made him effective.
So good afternoon, and a good afternoon as well for the Bats as they put 4 runs on the board, leading it 4-0 as we go to the 4th inning. 3-hitter Gregory Polanco will stand in. Big, strong left-hand hitter, hitting just 167 as the day starts. He's 0 for 1 flying out to center field, hit it well in the 1st inning. Alex Presley with a nice running grab as he approached the wall.
Polanco, one of the reasons Pirates felt fine about letting Travis Snyder go in the offseason. They feel like Polanco is going to be one of the stars.
Well spotted heater at the knees, 1-1 the count. Shift on once again, Sparky.
Starling Marte, and you have Andrew McCutchen in the outfield along with Polanco. Very exciting to think what these guys can do together if they reach their potential.
Polanco, Sanchez, and Alvarez for the Pirates here in the 4th.
Well, the 1st inning, Roberto Hernandez got off to a little bit of a shaky start.
Ground ball right side off the glove of the diving Chris Carter. Can they make a play? No. But backing up, angle good for Conger. So it'll be an infield single as Polanco starts things here in the 4th inning against Hernandez.
Actually a pretty good changeup this time from Roberto Hernandez. He had Polanco out front, and he golfed that one down the first base line, backhanded by Carter. And that's a tough place to come up with on your backhand, coming off the thumb of the glove. Roberto Hernandez covering first base. Didn't matter. Hank Conger is going to back up that play, so Altuve gave it a shot.
Nobody out, man aboard. Tony Sanchez, the cleanup man. He's the catcher standing in. The Astros have turned 1 double play on the afternoon. Back in the 1st inning, just the 2nd hitter, Jordy Mercer, grounded into a 5-4-3 with a 1-hopper, 2 VR. Dan Straily scheduled to pitch today, now getting loose in the Astros pen. So that would probably say 4 innings for Hernandez here this afternoon.
Hernandez paying close attention to the running game of the Pirates. Obviously Polanco with good speed. And Straily beginning to warm up for the Astros down the left field line now. He'll be 2nd guy in.
Pitch in the dirt gets away from Conger, and moving into 2nd base is Polanco. So now in scoring position, the double play is erased. And a 1-0 count.
Might see a little bit of this from time to time during spring training. Astros pitchers trying to be quick to home plate and not letting their arm catch up with their body from time to time. If you're not used to it, you'll get that last result.
Pitch hit in the air to center field. Going back with room to make the play is Presley. He'll make that play, tagging from 2nd, alertly moving into 3rd is Polanco. So 1 out, a man at 3rd. For the 5-hitter first baseman, Pedro Alvarez.
Here's 2 pitches ago. Here's trying to be pretty quick to home plate. Ended up spiking that ball. It's a split-fingered fastball that he just didn't catch up with the arm and had to take the shortcut. And that's when your elbow drops slightly, and that's the end result. You cut it off, and it comes up short.
Infield plays back. 4-0 Houston. Alvarez caught looking. One of the 2 strikeouts picked up on the day for Hernandez. That strikeout came in the 2nd. Roberto Hernandez has been busy on the spring. This is his 4th outing, 2nd start. And maybe the best we've seen him, and changing speeds and doing things well. I know you were talking, Sparky, about something your pitching eye picked up. 1st inning versus 2nd in deliveries from Hernandez.
Just started seeing more and more extension as the game progressed. He got out of that 1st inning, a nice double play in the 1st inning. It seemed to settle him down.
Starts to bring the heat after the change.
Yeah, he's starting to air it out now. He's feeling good about himself. Started this at bat with the changeup and then doubled up with a high fastball. Alvarez known to chase a lot of pitches out of the zone.
And now Hernandez out in front, 1-2. Of course, if you follow the game, you know Roberto Hernandez used to be known as Fausto Carmona. That through 2011, and he was really good as Fausto Carmona, at least at one point. 2007, he went 19-8 for the Cleveland Indians at 3.06 ERA.
How about that?
But when you add all of his seasons up, and this is one you have to chew on a bit, he's 26 games under 500. Now it stays at 1-2.
Started off very promising. Look at that. 32 starts in 2007.
And again, 19-8 that year. Last year, he was a workhorse, and that's one of the things I think the Astros are looking at. The guy that can take the ball, give you the innings needed. 2-2.
I was hoping to see that pitch. And I think Brent Strom's trying to bring that to the arsenal of Roberto Hernandez, who's been mostly a sinker guy, two-seam fastball guy for most of his career. There's Brent Strom, the second-year pitching coach now for the Astros, who basically overhauled Colin McHugh last year, changed him from a two-seam fastball guy to more of a four-seamer to complement that good curveball that comes out of the same window.
Why do you think that helped so much for McHugh?
Well, obviously his curveball is his best pitch, I think, as far as it has better bite, more swing and miss opportunity than his slider anyway. His slider's a good strike pitch, but swing and miss, it's that curveball, and that high fastball comes out of the same window.
Right on the fist, a two-hopper to first that's going to score a run as Carter now underhands to Hernandez. Second out here in the fourth inning, but the Pirates finally get on the board. It's 4-1 Houston.
Just went back and forth with a lot of pitches. Hernandez did with Pedro Alvarez. That one cutting in on his hands finally, able to put it in play and played a run for the Bucks, but Hernandez making good pitches all the way through. Watch this last one. Just tied him up, but good hitters, that's what they'll do. They knew the infield was back, and if he could just put it in play, it's in business.
A wild pitch in the inning, and for me, my perspective, that's the key to the inning. Not the fact that they got a leadoff single by Polanco. That's big. It provides the opportunities, but the wild pitch moved Polanco into second. Sanchez then flied to center field, not all that deep, and it enabled Polanco to move to third base. He scores on a ground ball. That inability to keep a pitch in front just sets up a chance to score.
Well, that's all about what A.J. Hinch has talked about all spring, is preserving 90 feet. Yep. Not just home to, or from third base to home, but like you said, harmless wild pitch, not too far away from Conger, but it allows the runner to get into scoring position, and they are able to small ball it around.
You know, talking about mistakes and 90 feet and all that sort of thing,
right?
And it can get lost in a ball game. We saw a game a couple of days ago. Kobe Rasmus in left field had a couple of plays that might have slipped the attention of a lot of folks at the ballpark, but for A.J. Hinch and for those of us watching the game upstairs here, I think we saw that there was a need for improvement, a need to make sure somebody doesn't go an extra 90. Fly ball down the left side. It's Rasmus with the play. Ball slices or turns back to fair territory, and that'll do it for the Pirates. So they get on the board in the top of the fourth inning. It's 4-1 Astros.
One as we go to the bottom of the fourth inning. Opening day, Monday, April 6th, when the Astros
take on the Cleveland Indians. That'll be at Minute Maid Park. Tickets are on sale now, so don't miss your chance to see the Astros kick off the season. My favorite day of the year, other than my birthday when I get a lot of presents. For more information, call 1-877-9-ASTROS or visit astros.com.
And there's the opening day matchup that we're likely to see. There will be no Steve Sparks there, but Corey Kluber, your reigning Cy Young Award winner, against Dallas Keuchel, who was absolutely terrific, should have been on the All-Star team in my estimation. A couple of guys that really proved their wares last year. Look at that ERA. 2.44 for Kluber, 2.93 for Dallas Keuchel. Dallas, the leader in the league in other categories, so it should be a lot of fun to watch. And I have not heard one bit from Dallas Keuchel about, oh no, look who I have to pitch against. He is just ready to go and see if he can give his team the advantage early.
I don't think you'll ever hear that from Dallas Keuchel. He's up to any challenge.
Corey Kluber in one season has turned himself into a guy hitters do not want to face right away. Line shot home run by Colby Rasmus on the first pitch here in the bottom of the fourth inning. As the Astros mount a 5-1 lead over the Pirates, that wind has started to blow in that direction, and Colby Rasmus takes full advantage.
Well, sometimes at the beginning of an inning, a pitcher just wants to settle down, get ahead in the count, drop a fastball in there, see if Rasmus will take it so he can get ahead in the count. And Rasmus had different designs. Very aggressive on that first pitch. Middle in, real quick to that baseball. It didn't look like he centered it perfectly, but it got out of here in about 2 seconds.
Yeah, you weren't a part of the discussion the other day, although I know you know about all the numbers. But first pitches around the major leagues, all around the major leagues, is clearly the pitch that hitters take advantage of.
Hitting over 350.
Yeah, well, that figure is right up in that ballpark.
Yep.
But it's quite phenomenal to see what a pitch that a lot of fans don't like seeing hitters swing at is where they take great advantage. And what pitchers talk about with pitching coaches all the time is get ahead and get ahead with a good fastball. Hitters say get a fastball to hit, so it's kind of the perfect storm for a big swing. As the first out is recorded here in the bottom of the fourth inning, VR grounds out. He had tripled, drove in a pair, and scored a run back in the second inning, so he's been really the guy with the huge swing to this point.
I've always been a big fan of giving a hitter what they want, but just something a little bit different, a little variation. So if he's looking for an elevated fastball, throw it a little bit higher. If he's looking for a fastball first pitch, sink it, see if you can get a quick rollover, one pitch, one out.
So you found that most hitters like the knuckleball then when they were batting?
A lot of hitters would look for a good knuckleball, so I would just throw the bad one.
Yeah.
Just to mix them up.
Well, it's a funny thing because I never hoped a guy would throw me a knuckleball, actually, especially when I was catching. Joe Negro, however, had other designs.
Big reason for that crooked index finger, isn't it?
My goodness, I've got a couple that are never going to be normal. Hank Conger at the plate had a sac fly, RBI in the second. 2 triples in that second inning for the Astros. Here's a gapper coming on, diving effort, can't make the play. Center fielder making a great effort. That's Decker out there. And without a nice effort at second base by the umpire, Laz Diaz, maybe a base hit, or rather a catch would be called.
Went out there to check it out, and good idea. This was close. Another real good swing by Hank Conger, who had a good at bat his last one on a sacrifice fly, but hanging out some ropes today for the backup catcher.
So the Astros on top 5-1. We're in the fourth inning. Just perfect weather. Unless you happen to be sitting in the sun here watching the ball game. Some of the folks have some shade. 9-hitter Alex Presley at the plate. I was about to say the Astros had 2 3-baggers in that 3-run second inning. Those came off the bats of Jonathan Villar and Alex Presley. And when you talk about Alex Presley, I don't know that a lot of people talk about how well he runs, but he does that. He has, as you talked about back in the second inning, a nice quick stroke. He'll surprise you.
It's an uncomplicated stroke, which lends itself well to coming off the bench. I think you don't have to rely on a lot of timing. Just gets that foot down and lets her rip. But he's made 2 real nice plays over his shoulder in center field this afternoon.
breaking ball induced the front shoulder to open just a bit right there. But I will say, in watching Presley, he is really good at having that uncomplicated approach you talk about, Steve. The hands stay very steady, and he just pops from there. That's kind of what we see a lot from Jason Castro when he's on. And Jason Castro, by the way, folks, appears to be on. We have seen him pound a couple of home runs in recent games. And I think Jason feels like he is primed and ready for a big year.
One of the things that was giving Jason problems last year was a little anxious on a lot of pitches, chased a lot of high fastballs. He's been able to lay off all of those this spring, and I think it's been, in his mind, a point of emphasis.
Fly ball left field, not deep. Right there, Lombardozzi comes in a couple of steps to make the play. 2 outs here in the 4th. And Jose Altuve will stand in. Talking about Jason Castro, let's take a look at this refined stroke.
A couple of dingers, one of them to right field. This was against the Pirates just 5 days ago in Bradenton. Turned on a heater inside. What are you going to do against Max Scherzer? Take one down the middle. He'll go the other way. Opposite field gap here in Kissimmee. Deposits that one. And that looks like Jason Castro 2013.
Yeah, that's really good stuff, and it's nice to watch from a guy that you need to have a big year from. Castro, to me, as much as just about anybody else you could name on this team, is needed if this club is going to make the ascension they talk about making.
I think it's easy to predict him to rebound in fine fashion because he's a diligent worker. He cares. He's healthy this offseason, so he was healthy enough to get ready for the season rather than rehab.
Snap throw from the catcher, Sanchez.
And to be honest, 2 off seasons ago, and I tipped my cap to Jason Castro. He went and finished and got his sociology degree from Stanford.
No way you can fault him for that.
Absolutely not. But he's able to put all of his attention on getting ready for this season this year, and it's shown.
He felt like he was able to self-evaluate last year and felt like there were some areas as a hitter he needed to improve upon. Also feels like he did the work on improving those areas during his offseason and feels like he's ready to go and just pound the ball around again. Well, that fastball was close on Altuve, close to him.
What did you see specifically with Castro last year hitting?
It's a funny thing because what I felt and what he felt might have been 2 different things in chatting with him, but I thought he could have backed off the plate I don't talk about big changes. I think maybe a half an inch to an inch is a nice move off or toward the plate. But I felt like the pitchers decided to work him in a great deal, and then it set him up once you start flinching and opening on the inside pitch to where you don't handle the pitch away. And he has approached it another way, but he felt the same things were going on. Altuve skies to left, and that'll do it for Houston. They get on the board on the home run by Colby Rasmus and lead it 5-1. Colby did not leave this in the yard very long.
A 5-1 lead for the Houston Astros over the Pittsburgh Pirates. Celebrate the 50th anniversary of the Astros and the Astrodome on April 17th and 18th, presented by Coca-Cola. On Friday, April 17th, 10,000 fans will receive a Jimmy Wynn bobblehead. On Saturday, April 18th, we'll turn back the clock with era-specific uniforms. The 10,000 fans will also receive a 1965 replica Astrodome. Pretty cool. For more information or to purchase tickets, visit Astros.com or call 1-877-9-ASTROS today. Ash, new pitcher for the Astros.
Right-hander Dan Straily, 26 years of age. Funny, you're talking about age. Asher Wojciechowski has not pitched in the big leagues yet. He's 25. Dan Straley's 26. He's a veteran and trying to prove his wares now to the Astros and maybe viability for this ball club. He is battling for that 5 spot. Roberto Hernandez, I think we would agree, pitched well today.
Pitched fantastic. Had good command of 3 pitches, which as a starting pitcher you'd love to have. Straily made his debut with Oakland in 2012. He has a nice fastball slider mix and a changeup and a little curveball. He's trying to implement a little bit more to go with it, but his slider is his wipeout pitch. That's when he gets his punch outs with.
That mix, though, has not had a great deal of success on the spring. 7 innings of work, 10 hits allowed, 6 runs all earned, 4 walks, and a couple of strikeouts mixed in. But that provides a whip of an even 2, and I think just a set of numbers that he needs to be able to shave away. Pop up in a tough play, but eventually making the play at short is Jed Lowry. It wasn't pretty, but getting it done is always the key.
Yeah, when you're a pitcher, you're just begging somebody to come up with this weakly hit ball. Lombardozzi lost one into that Bermuda Triangle. Lowry, you can see the shadow from the player exactly where the sun is. So he's looking right up in it because there's not much of a long shadow at all. Looking right up in the sky and comes up with the ball. Just caught it as long as he could.
Good Dan Straily trying to right the ship now as that sinker runs down and away.
We've talked about the Astros. There's a few guys in the mix, whether it's the 5th starter or the long man. Dan Straily, certainly one of those guys. Asher Wojciechowski, you mentioned Ash, is in the mix. Roberto Hernandez, who we saw throw 4 strong 1-inning run or 1-run baseball this afternoon.
That strike perfectly placed outside edge.
Sam Deduno is in the mix. Brad Peacock not far along.
Not far along or not far away? How would
not
you,
far away, yeah.
How would you see him? Because we've seen him on the backfields. And my impression, I'll just speak for myself, I'm thoroughly impressed with what I saw. And a brand new body on Brad Peacock.
She had 30 pounds. I asked him right when I got here.
Good swing as it's fouled back by Florimon.
I asked him if Richard Simmons moved in with him in the offseason. I don't know what he was doing. He does look good, though, and he looks real sharp. Had that hip surgery in the offseason. Looks to be ahead of the schedule.
How does that factor in? Was he bothered last year? I've heard stories that say maybe even each of the last 2 years there may have been some effect from that hip. As the strikeout is recorded, 2 outs picked up quickly by Straily.
Got a little game here for you, Ash. Let's guess the pitcher. Time here in the top of the 5th inning with the Astros leading 5-1. Age and experience, 26. 5 years of experience, ERA 3.88. And it's not easy. A lot of these guys stack up pretty comparably.
You know, all the silhouettes look eerily similar to me.
It's that puzzled look right in the middle of the face that makes them look so similar.
Yeah, but they should have more confidence if they're vying for that spot.
Obviously, Straley's one of those silhouettes. I think I saw Brad Peacock. Saw that look he always gives.
Yeah, you want to gain that stare that the major league hitters fear so much.
Tell you what, Dan Straily, good direction, good mechanics today. Doesn't appear to be overthrowing at all.
This is night and day better from his last outing against the Pirates.
He was really spinning out.
Pitch on the hands, grounded foul.
Looks like he's staying over the rubber just a little bit longer, and you can hear Brent Strom down by the camera well, the Astros dugout, with those encouraging words, deep baritone voice.
You know, Brent has quickly, or maybe over a long period of time, any way you want to look at it, become one of the game's elite pitching coaches. Do you see things the same way he does? When you guys talk about issues, improvements for pitchers?
He opens my eyes to a few things. I know that.
Foul tip is hung on to by Hank Conger. A 1-2-3 inning and a couple of punch-outs involved there. A nice inning for Dan Straily. Inning for Houston, 2-3-4 coming up. That means George Springer, Luis Valbuena, and Chris Carter, assuming changes are not made this early in the ballgame for Springer. It will be his third at bat and trying to get a big swing here. He'll do it against right-hander Charlie Morton, who is on to work a fifth inning for the Pirates. They have a left-hander, Leesman, throwing in the pen, so we'll likely see him soon. We've seen some changes within innings. Some guys need that call to be able to come in where they will during the regular season, Sparky, against a hitter during the midst of an inning.
I think it's a good way to evaluate your left-handed relievers. You know, I don't know if Leesman has a chance to make this team, but it's a good chance maybe line him up with Valbuena, who's on deck this inning, and see how he can handle that. So far, Leesman hasn't got a ton of action, but you may see him during the course of the season, and you'd like to see it in spring training so you can feel comfortable if they come up during the year.
Some pitchers, you know that they're going to be in situations where they start an inning, so managers will try to make it work that way. So for everybody, the manager included, you're trying to get in the kind of work you'll see during the regular part of the year. George Springer 0 for 2 with a ground out and a strikeout.
How many times do you get a guy come up to your team that you've never seen?
High chopper to third. A big hop makes it easy for Harrison, who throws out Springer in out number 1. And George now 0 for 3. It's been a really good spring for George Springer. Not a big day today.
Busting it down the line a little harder right there. That's good to see. Not that he's not hustling, but just trying to take it easy, make sure kind of work into game shape.
Sometimes you wind up with the frustration sprint.
Yeah, that's right. And you can tell by that he's ripping those batting gloves off his hands right now. He's frustrated. Luis Valbuena is the 3 hitter. He also is 0 for 2 as he stands in. 3 runs coming for Houston in the second inning. Carter, VR, and Presley all had hits in that inning, including Jed Lowry had a hit. 4 knocks. Big triple by VR. Presley added a triple. It didn't play to run, but just part of an inning that really happened the way you'd like to see during the regular part of the year. Valbuena from that open stance had a nice year with the Cubs last year. Hit some home runs, plays a solid third base. We've seen Matt Dominguez get some opportunities here in the spring and recently swinging the bat well. Yeah, we've been spoiled defensively with Matt Dominguez the last couple of years.
That ground ball finds the hole as the second baseman was swung toward the right field line. They'll get it back in quickly. A 1-out single by Valbuena as he's 1 for 3.
First baseman, 23,
We'll get a peek at some of the new coaching staff now for the club. Gary Pettis is at third. Rich Dower takes over at first base.
A lot of years of experience between those two. Gary Pettis spending the last 6 or 7 years on Ron Washington's staff with the Rangers. Dower, of course, fantastic career as an infielder, most notably with the Baltimore Orioles.
Dave Hudgens is the new hitting coach. Alan Zinter comes in as the assistant hitting coach. Of course, Brent Strom still in place, taking care of the pitchers. Trey Hillman is the new bench coach. Adam Everett is aboard now as one of the infield instructors. Mark Bailey, former Astro, has his name attached, one of the catching coaches. Line shot up and over the shortstop Mercer. That's into left center field, and that runs to the wall. Chris Carter is not going to be stopped today. He's 3 for 3. Drives in a run to make it 6-1 Houston here in the 5th inning. He has singled, homered, and doubled. And now they're going to pinch run. I don't know. Do you dare pinch run when the cycle is looming?
I don't know how you take a guy out only a triple away from the cycle. I don't care if it's spring training or not, right?
There's got to be a very upset Chris Carter heading toward that third base dugout. We
Short
say
to the
with
baseball.
tongue in cheek.
Short to the baseball right there. Check this out. Just quiet and calm and strong. Whipping that into the gap in left center. That'll be it for Charlie Morton. And it's going to have Chris Carter in his nightmares.
Charlie Leesman, the left-hander, will come in from that pen from down the right field side. For Morton, maybe a frustrating day here in Kissimmee. 6-1 Houston.
Houston Astros with a 6-1 lead here in the bottom of the 5th. 2015 Houston Astros season tickets are on sale now. Enjoy some of the best seats at Minute Maid Park. Save money and receive great benefits throughout the season. Call 1-877-ASTROS-9 now to reserve your seats. New pitcher for the Pirates, Charles Leesman, the lefty. Had a little bit of a taste with the White Sox the last couple of years.
Just recently turned 28 years of age. His first offering, the high heat, clanks off the glove of Sanchez, and that's 90 feet for Robbie Grossman, who's the pinch runner for Chris Carter.
Yeah, that looked like a cross-up. Sanchez swatting flies on that ball coming right at his face mask.
No conversation, and usually catchers will take full advantage of an opportunity to make sure everybody understands that it was the pitcher's fault if it's a cross-up.
I love that. I know you did that, Ash.
I crouched back down and tried to make sure nobody even was aware I was in the ballpark.
Did you ever get the glove in front of your face where you lost the ball?
Line shot over the drawn-in infield. That's a run-producing single. 7-1 Houston. And how about that swing by Jed Lowry on his second hit of the afternoon?
Getting a chance to hit from the right side for the first time today. Had a single back in the second inning on a left-handed stroke. This time with the infield in, looking for a pitch up just to try to get it to the outfield sometime. Keeps the barrel above the ball and just rips it for the 7th run for the Astros.
2 runs in the inning. There's still just 1 out, and that is a pretty stroke there from the right side. Lowry with the lead. Colby Rasmus stands in. He's 1 for 2 on the day. That one was a line drive that didn't come down before it got over the right field wall. Made it 5-1 Houston at the time. For Colby Rasmus, his second home run of the spring. It's one in the air down the left field side, slicing, and just does go foul.
What was that, about 3 or 4 inches? And Rasmus had stayed in the batter's box for a long time. I thought that was going to be way foul. But he almost snuck that in there. Swung at the last second. It's kind of a wristy hitter, don't you think, Ash?
Yeah, and watch his front hip. It won't open a whole lot. He keeps it right there. Not quite like Ichiro does. Ichiro will keep the front hip completely closed as he slides and hit kind of around that closed hip. What Colby does is he kind of uppercuts around the closed front hip. Watch as he takes his hat.
So for Ichiro, is that one of the things that makes him stay in the zone so long?
It's what keeps his hands in position no matter what pitch gets thrown, because he doesn't stride and open the front hip or leg or shoulder, but he just slides with that hip in place, and you can take all the way down to 30 miles an hour, and Ichiro will eventually just flip something, and that's what I think creates that wand for him.
It's an art form for so long. Now, of course, with the Miami Marlins, that's an interesting signing.
You know, Wade Boggs didn't slide like Ichiro, but he hit from that closed hip. It was all about hands for Wade Boggs. Big, strong guy that, had he thrown the hips into it, could have hit a lot of home runs, but likely wouldn't have hit 330 all the time.
You know, I watched Wade Boggs take some extra hitting at Yankee Stadium when he was with the Yankees one day, and somebody was throwing him soft toss for a while, then throwing him batting practice, and he would get so upset with himself if he ever hit a ball on the ground, which I thought was interesting.
So it had to be a line drive.
Had to be a line drive or in the air somewhere.
Well, that's intriguing about the in the air, because that's a guy, as stories go, and I don't sometimes know if stories are really always honest, but there were stories about seasons of his in which he hit 1, 2, and 3 pop-ups over the course of the year.
Yeah, that's crazy.
One out here in the 5th inning. Colby Rasmus draws the walk, so the left-hander Leesman comes in and facing some difficulties. Gives up the base hit to Lowry. The walk now to Rasmus brings up Jonathan Villar.
Take a look at Charlie Leesman's numbers. Major league career, just 9 games. 2 of them starts, ERA of 9. More walks than strikeouts has been the problem. For a situational lefty, you need a lot of strikes. Need somebody to come right at you. 28 years old now.
Infield plays back for the double play. Both bullpens quiet for the moment. And the ground ball into the hole, into left field. And digging for home. And the throw comes to the plate, but the run scored by Lowry. And the Astros just keep adding to this lead. It's 8-1 Houston. RBI single Villar. And Jonathan Villar, is he starting to throw his name more prominently into the mix of making this club?
I think his name's in the hat. He's having a great day today, hitting from the left side and right side. Look at this right-handed stroke. Went out there and hooked it into the hole. And Gary Pettis, third base coach, being very aggressive, sending runners.
Stopping at second, Colby Rasmus. Now, do third base coaches have spring trainings?
I think they have to.
They have to learn the speed and running abilities of their players. Some guys can run well, but they don't turn bases well. Some guys don't run very well, but they turn the corners well, and you can send them.
I love watching guys like Mike Trout run the bases. Bagwell was like that too. How they could lean that left shoulder and cut that base and get to the next one so quickly.
Conger at the plate takes high. 2 balls and no strikes. You know, it's funny. You were talking about batting practice and the way different guys go about it. And we were talking about Chris Carter and kind of cutting down his stroke and what he's going through. Jeff Bagwell was a guy that used to take some, I don't want to use words like ugly, but he didn't try to put on a show during batting practice. It was about just getting the bat to the ball. He kind of flipped some balls to right field and center, and then maybe toward the end of his batting practice, he might try to juice a ball or two. But it wasn't about putting on a show. And he just kind of get the feel. And then when game time came, he was just an entirely different hitter.
But he just practiced good habits.
Fly ball hit well to left field, going back. Lombardozzi, he won't get there. One hop up against the wall. That'll plate Rasmus. Villar being waved home. The throw coming to the plate offline. 2-run score on a double. And now coming to the plate is Conger. And he will score. So an error will be awarded on the play, not backing up appropriately Leesman. And the Pirates have to be a bit embarrassed now as the Astros make it an 11-1 lead here in the 5th inning. A 6-run frame for Houston.
Well, if I'm A.J. Hinch, this is what I want to see. Right-handed Hank Conger, who figures to get a lot of his at-bats this year from the right side, Castro being a left-handed catcher as well. Conger is a switch hitter, faced some of the lefties this year and hit the ball with power into the gap, which a lot of players have done this inning. A lot of pitches up in the zone. They take advantage. And Dave Hudgens, the hitting coach for the Astros, must have a huge grin on his face right now, watching his team knock out 11 hits already in this game.
The only good news for the Pirates is the bases have been cleared.
That was a Williamsport home run.
Yes, it was. It was. I don't know about the kids anymore. The last 10 years or so, they hit them out of that ballpark with ease. Are kids getting stronger?
Some of those kids are bigger than Alex Presley.
Alex Presley, though, tripled back in the 2nd inning. He's 1 for 2 on the day.
He'll take you deep in Williamsport.
12 hits today for Houston. High chopper to second on 2 big ones. Making the play, Florimon. That's 2 outs here in the 5th. And the 9th hitter of the inning, Jose Altuve, comes to the plate. How much longer did the Astros go with this starting lineup today?
Well, you know Altuve always begs for that extra at bat. This will be his 4th plate appearance, especially when he doesn't have a hit yet. Feels like he got gypped today.
What was the most impressive part of his extremely outstanding year last year?
You know, for me, is just the way he's able to hit so many different pitches, Ash.
He grounds one left side. He's got his first hit here on the afternoon as he beats out the chopper. Deep in the hole at shortstop. 2-out single Altuve. He's 1 for 4 as he plays a little salvage action.
Probably have a pinch runner here. Yeah, Gregorio Petit will run for Altuve as his day is finished. Continue that thought on Altuve. For me, seeing him on curveballs, changeups, he had the best average of any player in the major leagues, period. But he also had the best average off of off-speed pitches, whereas a curveball, slider, changeup, obviously his speed that you'll see right here makes up for some rollovers. But he can put bat to ball better than anybody in the big leagues.
Yeah, I would have to agree with that last statement, and all of it for that matter. Petit at first base, 2 outs. George Springer is done with his day, so it is John Singleton who will pinch hit here. And John's had an impressive spring with the doubles. He has made 3 errors defensively on the spring, but I don't know how much that factors in. I think they want to see John swing the big bat.
Got off to a hot start this spring, which I thought was imperative for his confidence. He's tailed off slightly lately, but one thing he has done is he's laid off some tough pitches.
Shoots one into right field. Another base hit. That's 14 for the Astros. Stopping at second is Petit, and the hit parade just continues.
Check out this hole on the right side. It's what Alan Ashby used to run through when he was a halfback at Laguna Hills High School back in California. There it is. Pull it into that hole. You got a hole over there. Look for something inside you can spin on. A lot of money to be made for a left-handed hitter with the first baseman covering first base.
Pitching coach Ray Searage comes out to the mound. It has not been a good inning for the Pirates pitching.
7 hits and a walk so far this inning.
Pirates have a left-hander warming in their pen. What's the most intriguing sort of thing you've ever heard said to you when you've stood on the mound in this scenario?
How long do you think we can have this conversation? Because the guy in the bullpen just started warming up. And can you fake an injury right now?
Yeah. I've been out there for some good ones.
Oh, yeah. I've had some. I had one pitching coach literally come out to the mound, and I had nothing. But I remember Paul Konerko was coming to the plate, and he told me to throw a high slider to him. I said, what?
Runners on first and
See
second.
if you can hang one.
Just throw a high slider. He's a chest high. I promise you, he'll roll over and get you a double play. Nobody means to throw high sliders, right? So I did. I said, we're fighting if this doesn't work. And sure enough, he rolled over 6-4-3.
I'll bet he was hot after grounding out on that one. I'm going to go back to Altuve just real quickly. One of the things, maybe the thing that most impressed me last year, the numbers were off the charts. 225 hits with the batting title. Ground ball, that's a base hit. So a big thanks to Dan Johnson, the pinch hitter, as he continues the inning so we can keep talking. The Pirates will add to it with another defensive miscue. Scoring on the error, the throwing error, is John Singleton. And the Astros making a total blowout of this, and the Pirates have to be rather embarrassed about what has gone on here this afternoon.
How you feeling if you're Charlie Leisman on your backups today?
Yeah.
He's been out of position twice now.
There's no way he could anticipate he's going to give up another hit, right? Okay. That said, back to Jose Altuve as Dan Johnson comes through with a pinch hit single. It was June 19th last year. Altuve went 2 for 4 in the ball game and pushed his batting average over 330. It was at 331 at the end of play. Not once the remainder of the year, June 19th, not once did his batting average end a night below 330.
Wow.
How about that for a stat?
That's turning it on.
Robbie Grossman with a stick.
Well, you can see it. I mean, he talked about a few goals last year, Altuve. One was to make the All-Star team. One was to stay healthy and play in every game. And the other was to win the batting title. And they kind of went step by step. And obviously you can control some things, but you can control how you prepare. And he prepared the same way every day. And it gives him an edge. And he's that type of guy. He wants to set things that can drive him to become a better player. And I would bet anything that he's coming into this season as Carlos Correa comes into the batter's circle now and the on-deck circle, that he wants to win the batting title again.
Let me get this straight. Did he talk batting title before last season?
At the halfway point.
At the halfway point, okay.
He did privately last year with a couple of the coaches.
In spring training?
Yes.
Wow. That's bold. Line shot is fouled on the left field side.
Of course, you don't want that getting out.
No, and I'm actually, my ears take that as, wow, I didn't realize he had that much self-belief.
And I remember first game he had to sit out. I was talking to him in the locker room that day that Astros coaches had made a point to try to get him to sit down a day or two. And he was almost crying, Ash.
Well, the Astros have no reason for crying right now as Robbie Grossman strikes out. We've played 5 innings. The Astros with a 13-1 bulge.
A patch.
We played 5 innings this afternoon. The Astros have put some numbers on the board. They have added it up to a 13-1 lead in the 6th inning. We were looking at these guys, the guys that tend with their silhouettes to look an awful lot alike. Who are those different pitchers battling for the 5 spot for the Astros? Asher Wojciechowski, Brad Peacock. He hasn't been able to pitch yet this spring. Sam Diduno and Dan Straily. Dan Straily looking sharp here this afternoon. Roberto Hernandez has had a good day.
Hernandez pitched well. Straily looking sharp, like you said. It's going to make it tough going into the last week and a half of spring training. Wojciechowski, probably the most impressive statistics coming into this game, giving up only 1 run so far this spring.
So Dan Straily spotted to this 13-1 lead. Roberto Hernandez. How do they work it now in spring training? If you work 4 innings, can you get a win as a starting pitcher?
Asking the wrong guy. I think
that's what I get
right.
for asking a pitcher.
Usually I knew about those stats.
Did it matter to you? Did anybody in the clubhouse privately or otherwise cherish getting the W in a spring training game?
I don't think anybody knew, really.
Yeah. I'd kind of like to meet that guy as my teammate and probably write him off very quickly. Of course, you want the W's. You just don't want somebody thinking that way. Carlos Correa, defensive replacement, comes on and makes a nice play. Maybe even a little bobble in the glove, but still able to make the play on the run.
There's Carlos Correa. Strong arm, throwing on the run. Got a couple of different changes for you. The Astros defense. Petit in there at second now. Look at that. Go down there with one hand, throw across your body, momentum going away. Singleton, how about that?
Not bad by Big John.
Pick me up over there.
How about Big John comes in and gets a knock on his first at bat of the day? And can John Singleton do any more than he has to this point to say, look, I'm ready to be your everyday first baseman?
I think he's ready to give him a shot. If he struggles, send him down.
Gordon Mercer at the plate takes a strike.
That's my opinion, but I think he's shown enough to say he's made some adjustments. His swing looks better. It's more short to the ball.
Well, if you set a guy down that, let's just talk John Singleton, what would you say to him? Look, we wanted you to come in and do such and such as the drive goes down the left field side, and that stays fair, a long ball. Comes with 1 out. Jordy Mercer puts the Pirates on with another run, but it's 13-2 Houston.
Native of Tologa, Oklahoma, population 300. Graduating class of 7. How about that, Jordy Mercer? He can proudly say, hey, graduated 6th in my class and still look pretty good.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, I wonder if number 7 has bragged about that like the guy in the clubhouse talking about the W he picked up in a spring training game. Gregory Polanco, the right fielder. We're in the 6th. Just 4 Pittsburgh hits. Roberto Hernandez in that battle to maybe be the 5 starter for the club. Pitched well today. 4 quality innings. Dan Straily has thrown the ball well despite the home run. Pirates have a right-hander twirling in their pen. I have to say the numbers on the backs of these uniforms for the Pirates are not standing out the way you might need.
For broadcasters with failing eyes.
Of course, I think Sparky's talking about himself, but yeah. Is that John Holtzcomb throwing in the pen?
It is. 6'9". Had his first taste in the big leagues the last month of last season.
I don't think it was the day that Charlie Morton wanted for the Buccos.
I tell you, it was an impressive day for the Astros in the sense that Morton's stuff wasn't bad by any means, but they made him pay for every mistake he threw. Every time he got it up, they were jumping all over it.
Straily has the pitch. Hit in the air, towering shot on the right side. With that shift on, I thought for a moment Correa was going to be the guy to take it, but instead it'll be the second baseman, Petit.
Here's where you want to throw a slider to a left-handed hitter. Ash, you can attest to this. Low and in's not good, but middle end, pretty good. Ties him up. Little baby cutter in there. See those hands trying to draw in.
And we saw Petit make the play. I had good impressions of what Petit did last year with the club. And I thought he swung the bat well. Not a big guy, but he swung the bat like a big guy at times.
Could pull it down that line, hit some doubles.
Remember a big home run he hit in Anaheim, helping the club beat the Angels.
He can play a lot of positions. A great presence in the clubhouse, just a tremendous attitude, smiling every single day. Straily coming over from the Cubs in that Dexter Fowler trade this last offseason with Valbuena. A couple of years ago with the Oakland A's, came up with a lot of promise. Real good slider. But his velocity's dropped about 2 or 3 miles per hour the last couple of years.
That's where it gets tough, when a guy's had some arm problems, and then you're hoping that he can get the problems behind him as the walk is delivered. Sanchez heads on down to first base, and it brings up Pedro Alvarez. But you always have to have in your mind that question, is the arm fully healthy again?
But he looks healthy today. We've got a couple of defensive changes for the Astros. Carlos Correa now playing shortstop. He'll take the place of Lowry. Petit in for Altuve at second. Robbie Grossman out there. He had pinch run for Springer a little earlier. He's playing right field now. Grossman having a great spring.
Off speed pitch, tap foul.
Pirates have an interesting situation going on in spring training with Pedro Alvarez going over to first base. He's been their third baseman for such a long time, and might be a platoon situation with veteran Corey Hart, who's had a good spring too.
Shift on again.
Astros shifting about 500 times more than the average of teams last year, with guys like Dallas Keuchel who can put the ball where they want it, take full advantage of it.
Well, it sounds like there might be more shifts to be seen this year, and I just wonder if it's going to prompt hitters to try to take advantage. Ground ball taken by Correa. He'll throw out the hitter, Sanchez, and that'll do it. So for the Pirates, they put a run on the board on the solo home run. It's 13-2 Houston.
Team 2 lead for the Astros over the Pirates. Here in the 6th inning, every Wednesday evening home game at Minute Maid Park is Dollar Dog Wednesday. The first Dollar Dog Wednesday of the season is April 8th against the Cleveland Indians. For more information, visit Astros.com or call 1-877-9-ASTROS. April 8th, Dollar Dog Wednesday. It's a good time. Mustard, ketchup. Alan Ashby likes sauerkraut. New pitcher coming in for the Pirates now, 6'9" righty, John Holtzcomb, signing out of Independent League Baseball last year. Pitched a little bit in Amarillo and made his way to the Pirates organization via a scout named Mal Fishman, longtime scout. Saw him pitching in that game. Saw him in the dugout first and decided to stay around in the game to see this huge guy throw. 6'9", and he can bring it. He was throwing 93, 94 that day that Fishman signed him. Went to Double-A with the Pirates, went to Triple-A, found himself the last month of the season in a pennant race, even pitching in the playoffs for Clint Hurdle. Throws that fastball mid-90s all the way up to close to 100 miles per hour with a good slider.
Music to my ears. I had a chance to manage a couple of years of independent ball. Loved it. Saw maybe a couple of my players get a chance in spring camps to make a club.
It's tough to get a look, isn't it?
It is. It's very tough. Holdom, though, has gotten a pretty good look. This is his 6th outing of the spring.
Well, I think they plan on him making the team.
Pitch foul back by Carlos Correa. Good swing. Nobody holding back right about now. 13-2 Houston in the 6th.
Holtzcomb got featured on Late Night Show. Seth Meyers, that Late Night Show, as a look-alike of Seth Meyers. They put his photo up to Seth Meyers, and apparently the two look just alike.
Was the headshot of Meyers down around the hip of Holtzcomb? Really, I didn't realize there was that similarity. So what about the spring of Carlos Correa?
It's been great.
Is he as good as advertised?
Maybe better. I mean, everything. I mean, when you're around him a little bit, you just appreciate more and more about what he brings to the intensity of this team every single day.
He is really, along with Springer, it's probably those two guys more than anybody else who I think about watching now. Yes, I love watching Altuve and what he does, and a number of guys, but you talk about the all-out assault with tools, Springer and Correa. Right on the hands, a little looper to second base for the easy out.
Way to jinx him, Ash.
Well, that's our job.
You know, I'm with you, and they're two different personalities, which I think is good. As Correa's more intense, Springer more not lackadaisical. He's intense in his own way, but very much more fun-loving. Correa more serious. And I think it's going to be great for this team to have those two guys in the clubhouse for a long time.
So 1 out, and the Astros go to the bench. AT HOU will grab a stick and get a hack. If you were an umpire, you're working a spring training game behind the plate, it's hot. You're in the 6th inning, it's 13-2, one of the clubs on top, and you get some close pitches. Will they be inclined to be called strikes?
I think as long as it's within each of the batter's boxes. Yeah, the catcher gets leather on it.
I think that's a yes.
And I don't even care if it's a wide margin of a game.
You do have... Yeah. Yeah, you do have to get leather on it, though, you did say. So.
Yeah. No, that can't be ridiculous.
That's a pretty good stipulation. AT HOU hasn't had a lot of playing time on the spring. Takes strike 3 called, caught looking for the 2nd out here in the 6th inning.
How about this downhill heater from Holtzcomb? Straight downhill with a little running action to the inside corner with a 6'9" frame. It's like throwing from the Empire State Building.
There's some of the numbers on Holtzcomb on the spring. You know, we said he's had a chance to pitch. Sparky mentions that he appears to be maybe already on this team for the Pirates this year, a team that 2 consecutive years now has gotten to the postseason. Cardinals have been great, and they win that division, but the Pittsburgh Pirates have been really good. Matt Dominguez gets a swing, towers one to center field. Coming in now to make the play, Decker, and that'll do it. A 1-2-3 6th. To the 7th we go. 13-2, Astros on top. 13-2. Healthy innings put on the board today by the Astros. They played 6 as we now go to the 7th inning, and a great chance to chat with an old friend, a guy that's been around the Astros a long time, a big part of why they've been one of the more successfully healthy teams throughout the years. Last year, you can look, and the Astros really did stay healthy quite well. Rex Jones, and Rex has announced his retirement come the end of the season. Rex, congratulations on really what must be, at this point for you, a very successful and happy career.
Yeah, thanks, guys. It's been very happy and successful. It's been wonderful. A lot of great moments along the way.
37 years in the organization, in the major league since '94. And I would imagine there's a couple of instances that stick out more than anything, but the World Series, Rex, is that right up there at the top?
Yeah, I think the World Series is right up there at the top. I think the other part was Craig Biggio's 3,000. That was pretty impressive.
Is that emotional for you, Rex?
It was way more emotional than I thought it would be at the time. It's pretty incredible when you see it happen, you know?
Get pretty close to guys when you work on them as much as you do. And I would imagine as much as Craig played and as hard as he played, you spent a lot of time working with him and felt a little sense of pride when he reached that goal.
Well, you know, early on in his career, before he hurt his knee there against the Marlins at one time, Craig he didn't like the training room, and he didn't think anybody else should like it either. So that was the old school.
How have things changed through the years for you from your eye?
I think the biggest thing is that we try to do a lot more preventive care of players. We try to make sure that the small things don't lead into big things, and I think that's the biggest change. We get more guys in the training room to try to prevent things.
Imagine as a trainer, it's got to be a challenge. You get those guys that are in there, and you might have a chance to get close with them into the training room. It's kind of taboo among a lot of players to even, as Sparky was talking about, or you were about Craig Biggio, about being in the training room a lot. But you guys provide so much for a club over the course of 162.
Yeah, I think we do. You know, it's not just about treating injuries; it's about preventing them, and then when they do get hurt, trying to get them back on the field. The last thing we want to do is to take guys off the field, and we definitely don't want to take a guy away from our manager because he's only got 25 guys that night, and we want to keep the guys on the field.
Jeff Decker leads off the 7th inning for the Pirates with a base hit, brings up Steve Lombardozzi.
Rex, you told me something last year, and by watching you do it, it's hard to believe, but you'd never really grown up playing baseball, and you've rehabilitated enough pitchers or guys trying to rehabilitate their arm that you go out there and play catch with them. You've really developed your arm strength and your technique for a guy that never really played. Is that kind of surprising to you? You're able to pick it up so easily?
Well, I think, you know, you always wanted to play, but I never really did play. But when I got here, you know, you watch players throw, you watch, you know, pitching coaches teach pitchers how to throw, and you just try to pick up some of that stuff and apply it. I always felt like I had some sort of athletic ability, and throwing was one of those things.
You know, I just heard that question from Steve Sparks, and I want to make sure I got it right. He did say that because you've been around baseball this long, you've never really grown up. Is that what I heard?
That's exactly what he said, and it's true. It's true.
Well, it's kind of fun to stay that way, isn't it?
Absolutely. You got to be a kid in this game. You know, I hang around people that are 25, 28. You know, every now and then there'll be some people as old as you, Ash, but not very often.
Man, oh man, nicely put, Rex.
Rex, what are you going to miss the most, you think?
Probably the camaraderie of the people. You know, I think that's really one of the things you miss a lot. The other part I think I'll miss is the quality of baseball that gets played on a major league field. You can't really see that sitting in the stands. You can't really see that.
Looks a lot easier, doesn't it?
Oh, it looks way easier. You know, they say the further you sit away from the field, the easier the game gets, and I think that's probably true. But it's an extremely fast game on the field, and that's what makes it really fun.
You know, I've got some old baseball cards with my mustache, and guys shun that mustache. I'm wondering, is that why you're walking away from the game at this stage? People are shunning the mustache?
Well, they can do whatever they want about that. It's staying no matter what.
Now, I would imagine your grandkids or your kids probably couldn't imagine you without that trademark mustache.
Yeah, that's pretty much true. My youngest daughter, Laura, I came home one day, had it shaved, and she ran into the closet and hid. And she said, "That's not my daddy. That's not my daddy."
So it stays. I would imagine, and you and I have talked about how much you enjoy fishing. I would imagine that's going to be top of your list for a year or two at least.
Yeah, I like fishing, but I like catching better.
There's a line shot to center field by Pedro Foramon. Second out of the inning. Rex, we just wanted to make sure and have you on, and hopefully a chance to chat with you a whole bunch over the course of the year. And we also hope it's a very successful one for you. Thanks a lot.
Appreciate it, guys. Thank you a lot.
That's Rex Jones, longtime trainer, assistant trainer with the Astros, and what a great job he does. And now the pitcher's spot. It appears to be Norrell with a bat.
Brent Morrell, big righty.
Yes.
Yep. Big righty stepping in there. Good power.
The Astros with 13 runs on 15 hits without holding a runner at first base. Decker takes off and swipes second base easily, so he's into second base.
Might as well with second base open, not paying much attention to you. Just take away that force, even in a lopsided game.
I'll be curious to see how A.J. Hinch plays things with a man at first base and 2 outs. I have some really strong feelings about that.
Well, where do you stand on that? I mean, I do too.
I think a first baseman ought to take a step or two toward the runner, play behind him, but in a position where the runner doesn't go. Because for a pitcher who gives up the freebie to second base and then allows a little measly single that produces a run, I think it's a horrible thing. Whether it impacts a win or loss that night, statistically, it just destroys pitchers, in my opinion. Fly ball to right field. This will do it for the Pirates in the 7th inning. The Astros with that 13-2 lead as we head to the bottom of the 7th.
Baker's dozen for the Astros. They lead the Pirates 13-2. MLB.TV Premium. #1 live streaming sports service is now available. Join the millions of subscribers. Watch every out-of-market game live in true HD on over 400 devices. Visit MLB.TV for details. It's a good one.
For the Astros, we'll see some pinch hitters here in the inning. 7th inning, Houston on top, as Sparky said, 13-2. Boy, good day for the bats. Good day for some of the pitching and guys that are vying for spots. Again, Roberto Hernandez pitched well. I think Dan Straily had his best day of the spring to this point. Pitch hitting here, Jake Marisnick, and he swings through the first offering. This is Hank Conger's spot in the order, and Conger had a nice day. Had a couple of hits, a single and a double, drove in 3 runs, also had a sac fly mixed in.
That was a good at bat, too.
So Conger, who had displayed very little offense on the spring, winds up with a good day.
Yeah, I think just going down to the minor league camp and get so many at bats got him locked back in. He's got hits from both sides of the plate today. Look real good.
Marisnick fouls it off. Counted 0-2 on Jake. Now, Jake Marisnick is a guy that could be your everyday center fielder, could play in center some of the time, or may find himself back in the minor leagues, and it really comes down to this bat, I would think.
Well, he has options. It comes down to that, too, doesn't it?
I love this guy defensively, and I'm not sure there's anybody who doesn't. Offensively, he showed some signs last year. and he's got terrific speed. If he puts it on the ground on the left side in the hole at all, he's going to beat it a good percentage of the time.
For me last year, I thought you almost had to throw it in his swing path for him to get a hit. It looked like he was in and out of the zone quickly.
Yeah.
Looks like a different swing to me this spring anyway.
Well, there were moments. There were times when I felt exactly that way, but there were other times in watching Marisnick with the bat that I thought, you know what, this might be coming along more quickly than maybe I would have guessed, as Marisnick is down on strikes, out number 1 in the 7th.
Well, I feel much better about him this spring. I love the way he's attacked the ball. I love how much longer he's in the zone.
Max Stassi is the pinch hitter now for Alex Presley, and Presley had a triple back in the 2nd inning, wound up his day offensively 1 for 3.
Well, these are uncomfortable at bats, I would imagine, on John Holdscomb.
The Astros put runs on the board in 4 consecutive innings, and we're not talking just singletons in that span. 3 runs in the 2nd, 1 in the 3rd and 4th, and then 8 runs in the 5th inning as they put the Pirates away at that point. Gregorio Petit waits on deck. Holdscomb from the stretch with each pitch. That up and in heat is kind of a wake-up call.
Stassi can hammer a fastball now. Trevor Rosenthal found that out a couple of weeks ago. Closer for the Cardinals. Stassi took him deep, right, straightaway center field.
You know, Max Stassi didn't have a big year last year offensively, and obviously it hurt his cause. But I think he's still very viable to my eye when I watch him play.
You like him behind the plate?
Yeah, I haven't seen a whole lot. It's not like I have a great opportunity to evaluate and say this guy ranks right here amongst the catchers for the Astros. But I think guys like throwing to him, and that's usually a good sign.
Works real hard back there. I like him. I mean, I think offensively makes you perk your ears. The ball comes off his bat. Real quick swing, compact. He's tough-minded.
He looks like a catcher. He's a fire plug.
Right on that fastball. Holdscomb has a little natural cut to these heaters. When he throws it inside and it cuts to that inside corner, that's going to freeze anybody.
You know, when a batting practice pitcher winds up cutting the ball naturally,
it's misery.
Hitters hate it.
Yeah.
So I've always wondered why pitchers don't try to develop just that tiny bit of a cut on their fastballs. Drive left center field and deep, going back. Lombardozzi at the track. This is off the wall. There's some of that power Steve Sparks was talking about. It's a 1-out double for Max Stassi.
Well, just another fastball. Stassi's able to square up this time. This one cut as well, but a nice loft in the swing. Watch this. Short to the baseball. Catcher set up inside and barrels it. And he took a good long look at it as he thought he may have gotten it all. Went about 400 feet in left center field, but that's a loud crack for a double. He's in scoring position now for the Astros.
Yeah, I find myself confused at some of the numbers that Stassi put up last year in the minor leagues, because for me he's much better than the numbers might have indicated. Petit hammers one left center field, back at the wall. This one is one hop out of here, so it'll be a ground rule double. Producing the run as Stassi scores, and the Astros now make it 14-2. This is a day where hitting coaches can sit back and breathe a little easier.
They were talking about this not too long ago. As Petit putting up good at bats late in the game. Good power from here. Finished with that little helicopter piece, one arm. And it hasn't rained much here. That hard ground out in the outfield as it caroms over the wall. The Astros just continuing the onslaught.
John Singleton has had one at bat. He took advantage. He had a base hit that came in the prolonged 5th inning. The Astros sent 10 to the plate. Let's see, make that 12 to the plate in that frame. Scored 8 times. John Singleton has to be making people think, stop worrying about my bat.
Yep.
I'm going to be just fine.
I happen to agree. He'll have his moments, and he'll press at some point, and it'll look bad again. Just like any hitter, right?
Well, like any hitter, but even more so any power hitter.
Yeah.
Power hitters are going to get the big swing. That's why they have the power. Although we've talked about Chris Carter, and he's kind of come up with a little bit of a unique approach that not many guys can use successfully. But he's certainly doing that. Carter had a big day today. Singleton pops it up. The shortstop makes the play. Backs under. That's 2 down here in the 7th.
But until you've had those bumps in the road, it's hard not to press. You got to go through them and know that you're going to get out of them before you can just start to relax and be a little bit more patient and trust the process.
Look, if a guy doesn't press, as now the Pirates are going to go to their bullpen, if a guy doesn't press, the question that I would then ask is, does he care?
Yeah. I mean, there's something to be said about trying a little bit less to be able to perform at your best. I always like the analogy of treating practice like a game and game like practice. And that just means doing things right all the time as you prepare and just not think when you get out there, because that's what gets guys in trouble.
The skip, Clint Hurdle, out to the mound. He makes the pitching change. The Astros, nothing to worry about for AJ.
Dang.
As have their fans here at Osceola County Stadium. 14-2 Astros lead over the Pirates. 17 Houston hits on the afternoon. Dan Johnson has one of them. He came on as a pinch hitter and picked up a base hit in that long 5th inning. So his second at bat of the day, he'll face the new left-hander Tom Harlan.
Bespeckled Tom Harlan, 6'5" lefty out of Fresno State, 12th rounder just a couple of years ago with the Pirates. Fastball slider mix. Dan Johnson seen plenty of lefties in his lifetime.
Harlan has that long, tall pitcher's body. You really grow accustomed to seeing a lot of big guys as pitchers. If you were a scout, Steve Sparks, are you willing to look at the smaller guys as a pitcher?
Well, there's not as much margin for error, certainly. The ball's not coming down at that downhill angle as easily as it would from a shorter guy.
So you might be inclined to let Billy Wagner get away, huh?
Well, if he threw 95 to 100, it'd be tough to overlook. I think lefties get away with it a little bit more, but I'm with you. I'll watch a guy. There's a guy in the minor league camp with the Astros, Kyle Smith, that reminds me of Tim Hudson, that's able to create a good angle on his pitches, and he appears only to be about 6 foot tall.
Yeah, that's a great example. Tim Hudson, a guy who's had a very successful major league career, and yet probably didn't have scouts just raving around him.
Not at all. He was an outfielder a lot of the time at Auburn, but a guy that's able to get that hand pretty high, obviously, and throw pitches that all look like the same pitch with the two-seam fastball, the slider, and the split-fingered fastball, all going in different directions.
So let me mess you up a little bit, and that's kind of my goal in life anyway.
It's real tough.
Tom Seaver was a, I don't know, 6 foot tall, 6'1" right-hander, but he drove on the back leg, knee to the ground. And as a hitter, I saw the ball come from an area that I didn't see it from anybody. Pitch is fouled by Johnson, and it was brand new, and it was ridiculous. It was out of the wrong spot. And so I ask, is it possible that maybe an extra low angle could be effective?
Well, if you ask Brent Strom, I think that's what he's trying to create with a lot of the guys on this team. Colin McHugh, not the tallest guy. He's 6'1", 6'2", but he's real successful with that fastball. He knows to throw it just above the belly button. And it looks so enticing, and guys can't lay off, and they also can't catch up to it.
Close pitch, but ball 4 called on Johnson. He takes first base. Runners at first and second, a run in here in the 7th inning, and Robbie Grossman at the plate.
But I think using your fastball like Tom Seaver did above the belt was obviously, I mean, he's a Hall of Famer. I mean, that part of the reason what made him effective, because people didn't see that angle.
I'll throw another one at you as Robbie Grossman fouls it off. Dennis Eckersley is from his era. He was a normal-sized pitcher, maybe a little short, but 6'1", 6'2", Dennis Eckersley, but threw from that low slot. And number one, everybody said back when he began, he's going to blow out his arm, it'll never last. Well, that was wrong. And then that low angle created a look, I think, that hitters had a tough time with and never seemed to adjust.
People forget how good of a starter he was for half of his career, and typically a guy like that's a little bit gimmicky maybe. I would say Eckersley's gimmicky, but a lot of times guys with those arm angles tend to be.
His stuff wasn't gimmicky. His angle was something you didn't see.
Right. So that lends itself a lot of times, those type of deliveries, to a bullpen role, which obviously he did so well. But he was also a good starter, so that speaks more to his stuff. But I love different looks in the bullpen. I love being able to match up certain guys with certain guys' swings.
So you're good with bringing in Quisenberry along with a 6'8" right-hander that goes from the top.
Yeah, don't you love that?
Yeah, I think there's a lot to be said for that. It's not that you can find those guys all over the place.
No, but rather than just match up righty on righty type, I like to think of a guy that maybe has a certain look that matches up well with a certain hitter.
You know, statistically, some of the righty versus righty and lefty versus lefty stuff doesn't really give you an advantage. As the fly ball goes to right, Robbie Grossman retired. That'll do it for Houston in the 7th. They mount a 14-2 lead.
It's a Houston.
Has had a nice day as the starting pitcher. Yes, he's got lots of offense. His job is to get outs,
Control.
and he did it very well.
Yeah, control was good. Got a ground ball double play in the first inning. Looked like it settled it down. Here's a heater inside Pedro Alvarez. Change up, getting the left-handed hitter out front. Here's Dan Straily. He looks very directional. Rub up a baseball and just start firing pellets. There's one on the outside corner tailing away. Outside corner again. Tail piece on that. Straily buckling with a backdoor slider. Gets Lambeau to end the threat for the Pirates.
Both guys vying for the 5th spot, looking good.
You know, sitting up here watching from our vantage point, you can't tell up and down as much as you'd like. Watching those last 3 pitches thrown by Dan Straily, who stays on now. Jake Marisnick heading out towards center field.
Got locked in the
went on right there.
Locked in the bathroom.
Yeah, sometimes that can happen. But the 3 pitches we saw from Straily, even the slider, were kind of left up waist high. And so I wonder, even though he's had a successful day, statistically anyway, did he actually put the ball where he wanted?
Well, I'm not a big proponent of lateral movement on any pitches. I don't like it a lot, especially on your fastball. That fastball comes in on a good downhill tilt. That's what I like. I like a 2-seam fastball with more depth to it, because I don't think the hitter can track it with their eyes as well. He pours another one in. Straily
For me, though, upper body today is working toward the catcher a lot more. He was spinning out toward first base in his last outing. See, he gets to the top here and drives down, and he gets it down, and that's what you're looking for. But he's been more patient today. Looked a little jumpy in subsequent outings this spring. And I think he's just telling themselves, hey, I'm not putting my best foot forward, and I'm just going to be a little bit more patient. It looks like he has a crisp fastball.
Much better than his last outing from my perspective. We're in the 8th inning, 14-2 Houston.
Watch this. Just be patient. Let your arm catch up to your body because you want to throw downhill. That's what he does. He gets out over that front leg and delivers one down in the strike zone.
Is that hard to do when you're hurting a bit as a pitcher?
I think so, because you want to help yourself. You think that if your arm's sore, you want to muscle it up there.
Slider gets him on strikes. First out here in the 8th.
Astros making some changes on defense. Ho's out in left now. Marisnik takes over in center. See Matt Dominguez at third base. He'll take the place of VR. Singleton still out there. Max Stassi doing the catching.
Yeah. Come on, help us out, guys.
Robbie Grossman before the inning saying we can't play with 2 outfielders out here. Marisnik doing some business in the dugout, apparently.
I think that's an opportunity to show off a little bit.
Show your range?
Yeah.
Pitcher loves that.
Yeah, they typically do, but
how about a high fly ball to center field that lands right in the middle of the left fielder and right fielder? James Hoyt warming up in the pen for the Astros, who's had, in my opinion, the most eye-opening spring training of any of the pitchers. Thoroughly impressed.
Anybody call him Wait as a nickname? Wait Hoyt, one of the names of way yesteryear.
You roomed with him, though.
I did not, but he came in as a rookie in my 3rd year in the big leagues. So you don't hear those good nicknames anymore, do you? Guys don't.
Not really.
We're stuck in the baggy Bish era, I should say, aren't we?
Yeah. I miss them. I do like it when players have like beards or haircuts and they name those.
Like Dallas Keuchel. There's the second out. That throw a little bit on the home plate side, and that endangers a first baseman. 2 outs quickly. Yeah, Straily, really good. A.J. Hinch is going to take this shot to get him out of there and bring on Hoyt from the bullpen.
Well, it's been a great one. Dan Straily can feel real good about this outing, showing one of the reasons why the Astros targeted Straily in that trade with the Cubs. It's going to be a tough decision in about a week to 10 days for Hinch and company to decide who's going to make this ball club.
So Hoyt comes on. We have a chance to break it right here, 14-2 Houston.
Astros lead it. It's 14-2 at Osceola County Stadium. Individual game tickets for the 15 regular season are on sale now. Get your tickets to the biggest games of the year, including opening day and matchups. San Francisco Giants, New York Yankees, Red Sox, Dodgers, and Rangers. Good games all. For more information, visit Astros.com or call 1-877-9-ASTROS. Big season coming up. New pitcher for the Astros, big righty. Not Wade Hoyt, not Lamar Hoyt. This is James Hoyt. Numbers so far this spring for James Hoyt. He's been fantastic. Here's what he's done in the minor leagues. 4 seasons. Pretty good whip at 1.31. Strikeout to walk ratio is fantastic.
I like the Lamar Hoyt. That's not quite as far back as Wade Hoyt. Time to throw strikes when you come in this scenario. You say you've really liked him this spring.
Loved him.
How close is he?
I don't know. I mean, I'd be real comfortable with him on this ball club at some point this year. 28 years old. Got a late start out of baseball for a little while. And got back in it after playing some independent ball. Good late action on his pitches is one thing you got to love. And 2 stops last year with the Braves. And, by the way, coming over in that Evan Gattis trade. Coming over to the Astros for Fulton-Evich, Rio Ruiz, and Andrew Thurman. This is a big piece. 1.14 ERA in Double-A in 28 games. A lot of ground balls. Hides the ball extremely well.
Fly ball right center field. Long run for Marisnick. He will go after it and can't quite come up with it. If he can't get it, it can't be gotten into second and now toward third base as the Pirates have a leadoff triple here in the 8th inning.
Good looking swing. Hoyt falling behind in the count. Trying to come in there, obviously, in a 14-2 game. Looked like a get-me-over slider. And like you said, Marisnick just off the tip of his glove. And if he can't get it, not many guys in the major leagues can.
Well, you can see the all-out effort right there. We got a chance to check in with Julia. She's been hiding for a while.
I'm hiding from the sun is what I'm doing over here. You know who else we haven't seen recently is Evan Gattis. He hasn't been on the big league field. Been dealing with that sore right wrist, but he's been playing in minor league games recently, guys. 5 innings. I think hoping to get up to 7 today. I'm not sure how many he went, but he's also hitting up the tee, and he took live BP with the guys on the big league side today, which is really good. Hoping to DH tomorrow, so he's getting there.
So when those minor league games, just defense?
Yeah,
just defense, and actually fielded his first ball yesterday. Was very excited.
So there were a lot of interest in making sure he gets enough reps out in left field because that's an area where he might be defensively this year.
Right, and he's been working a lot with Gary Pettis, just getting a lot of reps in. So it was good for him to get out there, and nothing's wrong with his legs. So he wanted to play some innings over there on the minor league.
What else can we get you, Julia, to make you comfortable down that?
In a lemonade over there with a curling straw.
A fan would be good.
Well, you got plenty of fans.
It's like you're getting a pedicure under that Mary Poppins thing.
This is the greatest invention ever, by the way. You get them by the beach, apparently. I've never seen them in Houston.
What, umbrellas? You never heard of them?
The ones that attach to the seat so I don't have to hold it.
You've been working with Dick Van Dyke down there today?
Stop it. This is a lifesaver, though.
One out here in the top of the 8th inning. And the strikeout on the high heat. Just blows it by, and that'll do it for the Pirates. They get a triple, but strand him at third. 14-2 Houston. been mighty. Jonathan Villar got things going with a gapper into right center field, a three-bagger that played it a pair back in a big second inning. Chris Carter played a part in the offensive marauding this afternoon, and did he ever, as he launched his second home run. Chris Carter, a triple shy of the cycle, and I think Chris Carter might be fuming about not having the opportunity to complete that. Colby Rasmus hit his second home run on the spring, a line shot that didn't hang around long. And so when it's all said and done, you add up a fifth inning in which the Astros put 8 runs on the board. A very big day offensively.
Well, I almost started to feel sorry for the Pirates pitchers until I didn't. Astros hitters getting locked in, a lot of loud cracks in my headset.
So you shed that feeling sorry feeling pretty quickly.
You know, it's a bad feeling any time that you watch pitchers just take it on the chin, but Astros hitters, I thought more than anything, took advantage of mistakes, because I didn't think Charlie Morton had bad stuff whatsoever, the starting pitcher for the Pirates. But anytime he got it up, boy, they were ready on it, and they attacked.
In baseball, it's certainly true. There are some of those days, one way or another, that it doesn't mean that a guy was bad pitching, but he got lit up for whatever reason, or it can go the other way. Speaking of taking it on the chin, Clayton Kershaw of the Dodgers yesterday took a line drive off his face, apparently chipped or lost a tooth, and but it looked like he was all right when it was all said and done.
Finished his outing. I mean, he finished that inning, then completed a couple more innings as Correa swings through one.
How about that swing by Carlos Correa?
Gosh.
Look, what you're going to see with Carlos Correa is this tall athlete that can really mount some bat speed. He can play shortstop, very much like Alex Rodriguez when he was young and leaner, and just such an impressive-looking athlete. By the way, we saw Alex Rodriguez yesterday. He didn't play in the game against the Astros, but he's still big and strong and still looks like he might be a plus for the Yankees.
A couple of home runs this spring.
Pitch hit in the air center field, and plenty behind it, but not enough, as out number 1 is recorded here in the Astros' 8th inning.
Didn't get much of that one. It was a nice little tiny break-in ball from Josh Smith, the righty, and still hit it 400 feet straight away center field.
See where Matt Wieters of the Orioles, their fine catcher, might start the year on the DL.
Yeah, started one game at catcher, played 6 innings, and just didn't recover from it.
But it was Tommy John surgery for him last year, right?
That's right. Felt like he was going to be on schedule to start for the team this year, but looks like he's going to be pushed back now.
LJ Hose with his second at bat. Hose struck out looking in the 6th inning. So we mentioned Clayton Kershaw. Chris Bryant of the Cubs, 2 more home runs yesterday, 8 on the spring, leading by, I think, double the figure. I think the next most home runs is 4. And Chris Bryant may not make that Cubs club coming out of the spring. Another fly ball to center field. This one back at the wall. Hose got a big piece, but not quite enough. And 2 outs on long fly balls here in the 8th inning.
About 810 feet of fly balls to get the first 2 outs. Josh Smith happy he can keep it in the middle of the field, because Hose and Correa both. Look at that Hose exploding through the strike zone. This is aggressive. Astros just teeing off today.
So what if you found yourself traded to the Boston Red Sox and you realized the green monster, I don't want the ball going that way, I want to keep it in the middle of the field? Is there a legitimate way as a pitcher, right or left-handed, to get the ball to go that direction?
A lot of people think there are.
People talk about it all the time.
I think on right-handed, I think it depends on the type of hitter you're facing, but if you can get a right-handed hitter, and throw him middle away, I think Matt Dominguez is the type of guy you can get to hit fly balls to center.
You know what, as years have gone on, and people will try to pitch away on the right-hand hitters at Fenway, and they'll reach out and turn it around and hit home runs, cheapies. Then somebody will come in and say, well, the way I succeed is by pitching in hard a lot. And I imagine there are multiple ways, but I don't know that you can draw it up on paper. Matt Dominguez grounds out a 1-2-3 8th inning. We're down to the 9th as the Astros lead it 14-2. Spring training can be quite different from the regular season. The sights and sounds appear different. It's casual, it's laid back, and I think a lot of families come out just to have a nice chance to get close to the players and see things through a different lens.
I think you hit it right there. You can get close to the players. You can have conversations with the players. Your kids can go on the backfields, watch early work. They can see the minor leaguers that they've read about. It's just a nice, relaxed atmosphere where the players, especially the ones that have a spot already on the team, can relax and not have to be uptight about where they need to be at a certain time. Like a Jake Marisnik, he's having a chat with a fan or two, always a smile on his face, taking the equipment in. Probably sign autographs for about 5 or 10 minutes before he takes it in and hits the weights, maybe a little treatment if he needs ice. Go home and get a good nap and do it again tomorrow.
A lot of what spring training is all about. I think players look forward to spring training, but that last week or two, you start gearing it toward opening day. They talk about the bell ringing, and that's opening day, and at that point, it's dead serious, and you try to get it locked in.
The Astros have gotten off to poor starts the last few years, and I think they're trying to change their approach a little bit to get off to a better start.
Well, what do you do as we start this 9th inning? The Astros trying to lock down this 14-2 lead. What do you do if you're a manager to say, okay, this year it's going to be different. We're going to get off to a good start under my regime. It's going to happen right now.
I would have a conversation maybe 3 or 4 days before that last off day. And I would target guys to start thinking about that day as the switch. And you flip the switch when there's that off day and you come back the day after that, and there's about a week left in spring training, and A.J. Hinch has done a remarkable job of communication with the players every single day. Players feel like they can go and have real conversations and find out where they stand. But I would tell them, I mean, guys are going to play a little bit longer. I want some of the starters out there for 7 or 8 innings. I want the pitchers to throw back-to-back days. A lot of teams do that. But the Astros need to do it with a little bit more purpose because of the way they've started. They put themselves behind the 8 ball early on in a tough division.
You know, there are multiple conversations had in baseball. One of those is, let's have fun playing the game, boys. And I think you have to have that over the course of the long season. One of those conversations is, let's get serious. Let's be professional about what we do.
How can you have fun when you're not winning or you're playing well?
That's
I mean,
true.
how miserable were you when you didn't play well?
But which brings the winning? Is it the loose attitude or the professional attitude, or is it the fact that you've got to start winning to start feeling that loose desire to come out to the ballpark and enjoy one of the greatest professions you could possibly have?
I think there's a lot of different ways you have to go about it, and a lot of it has to do with your type of personalities you have in your locker room. You can't fake being loose. If you're not a funny guy, don't try to be funny. But here's the thing, you got to do things right in practice so it shows up in the game. That's number one.
Yeah, things are going right here. A couple of strikeouts to start the inning. The out recorded down at first base. So 1 out away. The Astros had a 2-0 lead going into the 9th inning at Tampa against the Yankees yesterday. It got away. This one is not likely to turn in that direction as we have 2 outs. I just want to say to Steve Sparks, what a pleasure to have you on board today and a part of things. It's been enjoyable. It's been insightful. It's been really great stuff. Thanks.
I appreciate it. Yeah, it's been a lot of fun. I haven't done television in quite a while. It's much different. You don't have to take your little breaks in between the pitch or really describe the action, so it's been kind of fun. And obviously working with you, I mean, a catcher and a pitcher, I mean, it makes sense to bounce things back and forth.
By the way, for those wondering, Jeff Blum has not had the assignment of spring training this year. He is working hard as we speak, doing sit-ups at this very moment out in California and making sure the coastline is secure. But we look forward to seeing Jeff Blum, Bill Brown today on the radio side. And so we're just mixing and blending here in Florida.
Yeah, it's been fun. Obviously, you and I and Brownie and Robert, my partner, spend a lot of time together before and after games anyway. So it feels pretty natural just to blend during the course of spring training.
Lombo, as it says on the back of the shirt, swings through the heat on the 2-0.
3 punch outs in a row for James Hoyt. A really
So what is it you actually like about him then?
I love the way he sticks that ball right behind his head, and you don't see it until he releases it. I love guys that hide it so well.
I know you go back on the backfields, the minor league fields, and watch guys throw. Do you formulate your opinions based on what you see there?
Oh, yeah. Joe Musgrove. Here's a guy that's in minor league camp right now that caught my eye a few days ago. Man, he's impressive. He'll be probably in Quad Cities or Lancaster this year, but he's one of those guys that came over from the Blue Jays a couple years ago.
3-2 the count now. You had one get away, a guy that you were pretty romantically involved with last year.
Boy, was I ever. Yandel Gustave. Just pitched in Quad Cities last year in low A ball, but he was picked up. Rule 5 draft. Looks like he's going to make that Royals team.
3 strikeouts in the 9th inning. How about that? As Hoyt deals, and you always have to ask yourself how much of an impression is being put on James Hoyt with a very nice conclusion to this offensive outburst by the Astros. 14-2 they win it, and again a big thanks to Steve Sparks as he contributes mightily on this glorious afternoon in Central Florida. The Astros winners over the Pittsburgh Pirates 14-2. Our last telecast of the spring starts tomorrow morning at 11:30 when the Astros take on the Atlanta Braves. For Steve Sparks and Julia Morales, I'm Alan Ashby. See you tomorrow from Kissimmee, Florida.